Start. Hey guys, welcome to episode 1 of the Smash podcast, which we called Melee It On Me. Episode 1 is called ROM Knee 2012. We're going to mostly talk about ROM today. I'm your host, Scar. You already saw who's with us, Cactuar, Prague, and Sheridan. Everybody, how's it going? Cactus, how are you doing, man?
I'm very good to be here. I like the title of our first episode.
Is this the first time you heard it?
Yeah.
Shout outs to Prague for being a genius with wordplay. Pretty
Clever.
Funny. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about what we're trying to do with the show. Obviously, we want to talk a lot about ROM. The community kind of blew up with the events of ROM. We want to sort of just discuss it and figure out where we stand collectively. And so, yeah, your feedback is super important. We're going to check Reddit. We're going to check Twitter. We're checking the chat. So, and obviously we read the thread, so all of your input is super cool. So, and then I wanted to talk about, yeah, what we're trying to do more generally. And I think that my vision is that we need, as a community, we don't really have a mechanism to discuss things in the way that I think would be most productive. We have the boards, but there is a lot of misinformation on the boards, and discussions kind of go over the same things over and over, and we kind of want to enable communication a little bit better. So yeah, education is a big part of that, just kind of trying to weed through the misinformation, focusing discussion, and also to help generate hype. Like if somebody's doing something really cool, I know that a lot of people have had really awesome efforts and maybe didn't get the support that they needed, but we as a community have a lot of resources, so if you ever need to be elevated, if you need to be on a platform, we can help with that. Prague, where do you live?
Sunset Park, New York, in Brooklyn.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Shout outs to the that car.
Yeah.
Yeah, facilitating communication I think is super important, so we'll see how we do on that. And obviously we're going to keep improving, but this is our first shot at it. And to improve general knowledge sharing, so that everybody knows what's going on. Some people are doing some really cool things with sharing actual metagame techniques or advanced text or whatever, and we can disseminate information if everybody's coming to one place. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Word.
So we're going to start by just talking about sort of in an unbiased way what happened at ROM. Starting with the promotion, the attendance, day 1, day 2. Who wants to take the promotion and attendance at ROM?
I think Prague is more suited towards talking about that. So.
Okay. ROM 5, promotion-wise, was pretty static. What you expect. You have the occasional hype video. Numbers-wise, I think we got over 100, which was pretty stellar. ROM is, at this point, not really a major. It's kind of a regional plus, where we'll get a lot of East Coast players, top players from most of the U.S., and then even the occasional foreigner, and also, of course, Canada sending a great delegation at every one of these events. So in that sense, it's been relatively standard to the ROM profile in terms of attendance and whatnot. However, in terms of outside of our community, it was a lot bigger than what we have dealt with in the past. This was the first time that a ROM was on the front page of Twitch TV, which brought in a ton of additional viewers from outside of our community. And I think that's kind of an additional tipping point as to why the events are so mainstream and so important right now. Because it was more than just our hardcore fan base, it was the random person watching as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that sums it up pretty well. So a question that I did have was about day one. So day one we actually started pretty late, but I actually got the sense that day one was one of the most fun day ones of any tournament, really. I know that I had that feeling, and a lot of people that I talked to really enjoyed day one a lot. Does anybody, Cactus and Prague, you guys were both there, did you feel that way too, and do you have any ideas for why that might have been the case? Cactus, you can go first.
I don't know. I didn't have quite the same feeling. I mean, to me, it was like the first day of any other national. But a lot of the time that I was there, I was spending with Kirby Kaze trying to warm up teams. So, I mean, the venue was kind of nice. It was just spread around in a circle, and we could always see everybody else. The venue was a lot bigger than the prior ROMs, so I mean, there wasn't as much elbow bumping, which has been a problem in the past. But I don't even know what else to say about that. It's just standard for me.
Did you get that feeling?
I guess coming from the perspective of someone that has been watching everything, especially right after Sandy and how so many areas were without power for so long, and even with Alucard, what happened with the venue. This was the first time that a tournament was being hosted. Toyways basically moved that week to that venue, and they had their technical errors because of Sandy and whatnot. So it was like Christmas morning in a sense. We were opening up a brand new venue, and also it was a really relaxed day. You know, we did mostly pools, and there were a lot of friendlies, and most importantly, there were a lot of faces of people that I'd never seen before, and you know, especially for me going to the same place that's basically a No John's venue, that's a rarity. So yeah. I was definitely inspired by that we're still somehow going.
Speaking of that a little bit more, I mean, Alucard actually had an issue where the roof of the prior venue, I guess it is, fell in on several of the setups that he had. I think there were 8 setups that he had stored there, and I mean, he made a post on the forums just asking everybody to come out and support and bring the setups if they could, and I think everybody really pulled through for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then, we can move on to day 2. So, oh, by the way, were there any super notable sets or matches on day 1? It was just pools, so.
There was a really notable teams money match set.
God.
I think I heard about that one.
Yeah, it was one of the gentlemen in this chat, Cactar and Kirby Kaze, fighting against Warrior Knight and DJ Nintendo Double Bowser, and it was really, really entertaining. It was a lot of fun to watch.
All right.
There's always this running gag with, well, I guess I really don't want to take in this direction, but in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, they always say there are only 6 characters that are viable. And a lot of people say that, you know, Melee is only space animals and get the occasional other people. However, in this case, we had a girl showing from a Double Bowser that kept the stream entertained and hyped, and it was definitely a good change from that view, especially from the Twitch TV viewers.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And so day 2, anything notable up until maybe 7 o'clock?
Same thing. We had, again, an amazing set with DJ Nintendo up against Chillin' with Bowser and Sam, nearly pulling off what arguably would have been the ROM setup, the ROM upset, pardon me.
Hey, and by the way, I heard a lot about this prophecy. What is the prophecy?
The prophecy of a Captain Falcon never being able to win a national. So,
The prophecy.
sorry, Scar. It continues.
Well, should probably apologize to Hacks. And John.
Totally agree with that. Hax is working his butt off right now.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I deserve an apology there.
Well, it's an
Okay.
apology for you picking that character.
So then, how do we want to tackle the events of 7 p.m. and later? Shall we start with the perspective of who was there? I'd love to get Sheridan involved so he can maybe talk about his understanding, but I think maybe that wouldn't be the best idea. What do you think, Sheridan?
Yeah, let's just hear an account of what happened first.
Cactus.
should I go with that one? All right. So going into was it winter semis that MTK had to play unknown?
Well,
Anyway.
originally it was going to be Egum versus M2K and Kirby Kaze versus Unknown.
Okay, this is before I'm familiar with what happened. So if you were there for that whole
Okay.
setup, you should probably talk on it.
All right. Seating wise, I think that on the same side of the bracket were Unknown and Kirby Kaze, and from the rest of their car, the other side of the bracket I think had Europhoria and Leon X. They were on one side of one side of winter semis, Kirby Kaze and Unknown.
They're
opposite
both
side.
Canadian.
Yep, they live in the same city. They're training partners, crewmates, whatever, what have you. They are very, very close. In the same essence, we had M2K and Egum. Even though M2K is, I think, in Ohio now for school or something. Either way, he and Egum, pardon me, are both from New Jersey. So one thing that's very, 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 very common in other tournaments is this prospect of floating, where if you are going to face someone at a certain point in the bracket and someone else, for example, fighting game community style, let's say that we have Ricky Tees and Justin Wong in winter semis. On the other side, we had Mike Ross and Kamo Fiend. All four are sponsored by two different teams. They'd be playing their teammate. They can ask for a float, in which case they will switch off so they're not playing their teammate unless they both end up making to winners finals. So it is somewhat common in later brackets.
Okay, so that's the float situation. And, Cactus, you want to pick up?
Well, from what I've been hearing, M2K has been using that a lot as just kind of, I did this one thing right, so me doing something wrong later is balanced out, which I don't entirely agree with. But what he did wrong, and it's not entirely on him, it's just the kind of the culmination of a lot of things going wrong. His set versus Unknown ended up coming down to 5th match, and using the current rule set, we use something called Dave Stupid rule, which is that you can't go back to any stage that you had won on prior. And there's a variation of this rule out there. You can't go back to the last stage you won on. And that was more for when we had bans and there wouldn't be enough stages to play out a full set of 5 matches. So M2K lost the first game to Unknown, and Unknown took him to FOD, I believe. And M2K won the first round, and then Unknown took him back to FOD, and M2K... No, I had that wrong, sorry. M2K went to FD to counterpick Unknown, round 2, won there. FOD, won again. Unknown went back to FOD, won. And then 5th game, M2K claimed that he could go back to Final Destination, and for whatever reason, we need to talk about button checking again later.
Yeah.
He demanded that they do a so-called button check prior to the game 5. So at some point in this, I happened to walk by because I don't know how long they were doing that for, but I mean, I just heard about what the situation was, and I mean, I wrote the rules.
Right.
And I just told them both in front of the stream, in front of the entire crowd, that M2K was not allowed to go back to Final Destination Game 5. Very specifically, I said this. I addressed Unknown about it. Unknown said that if that was the case, he would not agree to go back to Final Destination. And I went back to check with Alucard just to confirm that, I mean, that was exactly what he copied out of mine, because part of putting out the recommended rule set is that we want TOs to kind of take that rule set and branch out on it how they feel their community most wants the rule set to change and evolve. So I went back to confirm, and a few minutes later I looked back and they had already started the match on FD. King was already up 4-2. I mean, at that point you don't really want to just go in and say stop, don't play.
Right.
And I mean, moving forward from there is where a lot of this whole controversy comes from, because M2K had won that match, and then afterwards I spoke up and Alucard spoke up about that not being legal, and we were kind of just in a tough position, didn't know what to do about it. Alucard had been dealing with a lot of crap from M2K apparently, and I mean, combined with the emotion of having to deal with M2K, it's just, he kind of got pushed over the edge and made a snap decision to have them replay the 5th match. At which point, M2K felt that he had already won the set, didn't want to do it. Unknown, I don't know if Unknown was requesting this before Alucard had the idea, or if Unknown just heard the idea and was very adamant about doing it. Either way, they end up replaying it. M2K doesn't want to play anymore, loses the rematch of the 5th match miserably, and at that point he's just so discouraged that he goes into losers with the mindset that, oh, I just don't really care about going forward. But I mean, from that little segment of what happened, are there questions as far as,
Well,
is that
Yeah, can we, Sheridan, is any of that news to you, or is that pretty much the impression that you got?
Yeah, I mean that all agrees with what I've read of every other account in the thread. So it was Unknown wins on Battlefield, King wins on FD, King wins on Fountain, Unknown wins on Fountain. Then you get that whole thing about King about going back to FD, and I didn't know that they just started playing like without your guys' consent. So that's a little strange to me. Like, they sent you back there to check the rules and they just started playing, so that's a little weird.
Yeah, part of what I read later on the forum, and even M2K talking at the venue, the way I heard him speaking, he was snapping towards every single excuse that he could, which at the first thing was, oh, well, Unknown went to FOD twice, which
Right.
by any other player in the community, we know that, of course, he could go back to FOD.
Yeah.
He didn't win on
Right,
it.
because you didn't win. Yeah.
So that was his entire reasoning at that point in time, 100% his logic.
Yeah.
And then later on, his logic was that, oh, I do this all the time. I do this at every tournament.
So I think that it's a good idea to just stick with winter semis and not. We'll deal with the facts of later stuff as we go. But if we stick with this, so I just had the question of, so Juggle Guy brought up a great point in the thread, and I'm not sure if it was rebutted. It seems that most tournaments use the DSR. Oh, first, let's clarify which DSR is which. Cactus, would you mind?
Yeah. Apparently, I have it incorrect according to the Dave. I have it backwards.
Somebody asked Dave.
The Dave is apparently Scamp, which I didn't know either. I use the definition that I've always used, which I learned from playing in New York, and the New York guys use this definition with me. This is from back when I was playing against Wes and having to play him on like Corneria and those kinds of stages. But anyway, so Dave's stupid rule, according to how I know it, I think I already explained this once, but Dave's stupid rule is you cannot go back to any stage you had already won on. And then Dave's stupid rule modified is that you cannot go back to the last stage that you won on. Regardless of the arguments that people are making, I have it defined in the rule set.
Yeah.
Just because you use one definition, you have to use the one that is included with it. It's just
Right. Yeah. Even if the nomenclature is wrong, you have to go by what it calls it in the rule set.
right. So prior to this tournament, I don't think a lot of the majors have really adopted the full rule set, which, as I said, is kind of encouraged by us. But one of the big changes that we made was that there are no longer bans in best of fives. So prior to this change, U2 King was never allowed to use Final Destination. And I mean, one of the big reasons in doing this was we also have a much more reduced stage list now. But my belief is that any player that gets to the point where they're going to be playing best of fives is a high to top level player. And I mean, part of being a higher top level player is that you should be experiencing your opponent's best possible stage, their best possible combination of stage and character. You should have to fight that at least once in one of those sets, because you're going to be able to do the exact same thing to them, and it's just the display of skill is going to be much higher, at least on one part, and you're going to get the chance to prove yourself versus that opponent's strongest stage.
Right,
so,
and it's not like we have a whole huge variety of stages anymore. I mean, it's not like we have Brinstar and Corneria where, you know, the matchups are really strongly disadvantaged. I mean, the stages do play differently and there are disadvantages, but the fundamentals of the game don't change as much as they used to. So it's not a big deal. Yeah.
We're basically at like neutral +1, which is Pokemon Stadium, but that's a conversation for another time, whether Pokemon Stadium should still be included.
Right. Well,
so
can I ask the question though? So I think that Sheridan said something important, which is that since there's not such a big diversity in stages, you know, maybe the variance of the experience of the matchup won't change so much. Is that sort of that's sort of what you said, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I just wonder, like, what the value is of playing with such a discrepancy. Like, when you move farther away from the 50-50 matchup, you know, there's a character matchup that changes the 50-50 in one way, and then the stage modifies it in another way. And we know that there's certain stages. I mean, FD is one of them that skews a lot of matchups one way or another. I just wonder what the value is of, you know, making people play on that. And I mean, I understand what
this
what
is.
Jack
I
just
think
said.
that's a good discussion to have. But let's press on with the DSR thing for right now.
DSR.
Do you want to add that to the
using?
document, and we'll just get back to it?
Yeah, we absolutely. Well, we should. I feel like the rules is something that's really important, right? And if you're not clear on the rules, we're obviously going to have problems. So I think that we're all kind of committed to having either one rule set or understanding what the differences in the values of like different parts of the community are, and having like clear rule set 1 and rule set 2 or rule set 3.
But I think we need to press on with the facts of ROM 5 for right now. We can add this to discuss it as aftermath, but for now let's continue with you know, just getting through what happened.
Okay, so to continue with that, ROM 5 is using that reduced rule set, and it's using no bans. And prior to this, a lot of tournaments were using DSRM, as we discussed. ROM 5 took the rule set as I wrote it, which is DSR. And the reason I use DSR instead of DSRM is because while you should have to play your opponent's strongest possible combination, it shouldn't give them a 2-match advantage. So, I mean, U2 King getting to use FD twice, for those outside of the community, you won't fully comprehend what the implication of that is, but he's usually somewhat untouchable on that stage, and it's just, it's such a strong counter pick for him that it just kind of skews the set. So, for him to be able to use it twice, I mean, even in writing the rules, he was the first person that I thought of, and it just comes off as not being close in the variance that, I mean, Scar was talking about, where we're trying to keep things 50-50 throughout the entire set. While one match may be a little skewed, the entire set itself should come close to that 50-50. So at ROM, they were using standard DSR, and U2 King's claim later was that he didn't know that as well. And it's just another one of the reasons that this ended up happening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then we'll talk about DSR later, and you know what the merits of either are. So was there excessive button checking during winter semis, or did that come up later?
Button checking is really, oh, let me warm up on the TV for a minute or two. which is understandable because every different TV, I mean, you kind of want to get used to it before you go straight into your match. So, I mean, I've talked about in the rule set thread before that we can have just start a 2-minute match. Once the 2-minute match is over, that's your warm-up. That's all there should be. Other people in the community have claimed that we should have a 1-minute thing, but the problem with this is that that's not what happens currently. When Mewtwo King sits down, he wants to sit there and needle cancel for 20 minutes. That's not acceptable. It's just it's holding up the stream. It's holding up the tournament itself. It's kind of killing the hype that we're generating. It's killing the pace of the tournament. And we need to have rules in place for this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying?
Yeah, so that's like a pretty cut and dry case. I think we actually have kind of reached a consensus on this. You know, sort of what happened is not really good. We should do something about it. So we can just move on. By the way, I just wanted to bring up something else. I've actually been hearing from a lot of people that the saddest part of ROM 5 and what happened at ROM 5 is that you know, there may be apologies, there may be discussion, but nothing is necessarily going to change about it. So I think this is something that I really want to talk about later, but I'd like to sort of get a feel for what we can do to actually make real change. You know, MBR is pretty powerful, but I'd definitely like to explore what we're really doing to make sure that we actually make the community better and learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that later. So the facts. So where we're at right now is Mewtwo King won Game 5 on FD, right?
Right.
And so like Cactuar said, you know, it was kind of a snap decision to have them replay it, and then, you know, both Unknown and Alucard and Cactuar are dealing with M2K's whatnot throughout the whole thing. So Unknown proceeds to win the rematch, and you know, and then he's got Kirby Kaze in winners finals, and so that's when this splitting kind of saga kind of begins. So
okay, I can pick up from here.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been reading the thread that they have going on and off, and I really disagree with the negativity that's going out towards Unknown and Kirby Kaze, because
I agree.
Everyone is talking about it as if they wanted to split the pot. They didn't want to try in their sets. In my opinion, and from what I've seen, and from talking to Kirby Kaze, and from, I mean, just being around Unknown, it's not their intention. What they wanted to do was to play their set out. Unknown got into winners finals, and I mean, he was completely discouraged. He had just gotten off of a win versus Mewtwo King that very well may be considered illegitimate. That's going to be on his mind the entire set with Kirby Kaze. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. He sat down with Kirby Kaze and played the first match, couldn't focus. So he wanted to forfeit out of winners because, I mean, if you don't want to play the game, it's not our position to tell you, to force you to play out a set. You're just going to be upset with everybody around you. So he tried to get up from the setup and just say, I forfeit this set. And this isn't the fault of anyone, but he was pressured by the stream crew and whoever else to sit down and finish it out. So at this point, Kirby Kaze, knowing that Unknown isn't going to play the set seriously, is also discouraged from playing the set. Neither of them at this point want to play the set, and yet they're being forced to. So they pick random characters that they don't usually play in tournament, not with the purpose to sandbag, but to just get it over with, not have to play try hard mode the entire time. And then they get addressed by Alucard, and they get addressed by the stream. I think GimR was the one who talked to them about it, but they got yelled at apparently for doing that. So they picked somewhat serious characters, but still not their mains. So right. Kirby Kaze went Fox, I believe, and Unknown went Falco. And in this set that Unknown had previously forfeit through, he wins versus Kirby Kaze 3-2.
And
so,
Unknown mentioned that splitting had not come up at this point. Like, they had not discussed splitting at all through winners finals yet.
Kirby-Kaze and Unknown had not.
Right.
That's not true completely.
I see.
After Mewtwo King had lost to Unknown, I was still with Alucard at the TO table, and Kirby-Kaze was standing next to me. Mewtwo King came over to Kirby-Kaze and kind of begged them to split based on his loss, based on him being very discouraged at this point, not thinking that he's going to play well. I mean, to me, that's kind of inappropriate. I mean, even though there is some area to question as far as how he lost that set, it's still on him to make it back to at least loser finals and then be able to talk about that. But even then, you should still be motivating yourself to make it through loser finals, to make it through winners finals. It's not, oh, I lost the set in winners, now I'm scared of losing, now I need to demand that they split because this is illegitimate. It's just, at that point, speaking to Kirby-Kaze, he the entire weekend was just building confidence. He went to ROM, he was so confident in himself, he wanted to win. He wanted to beat M2K, he wanted to show everybody what he could do. And having Mewtwo King come up to him at that point, where he had prepared himself mentally to do his best versus this player, and for him to tell him that, oh, I can't play seriously now because this happened, I want you to split with me. All of that fire that Kirby-Kaze had was just extinguished immediately. There was nothing left to him. And again, going into winners finals against Unknown, where is that motivation to get past Unknown now? His entire objective was to beat M2K, to play M2K seriously, and he knew that wasn't going to happen. So it's just, it's difficult for me to say, but somebody steer me back on track here.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened between the KK and Mewtwo King set in losers finals?
I can't speak for Kirby-Kaze on this one, but I mean, to me, I saw Kirby-Kaze just throw away a lot of the opportunities that he had. He says that he played it seriously, and he may have done that, but even when you're playing seriously, if you don't have that killer intent behind your actions, you're just gonna screw up. And
right.
It wasn't even close to what Kirby-Kaze could have pulled. So it's just, I don't view any of the sets that happened late in the tournament as being legitimate sets. The result of the tournament itself, to me, it's kind of meaningless, and it's just, Mewtwo King got a free pass to a win, but what does that win mean, really?
So, yeah, I just wanted to actually ask a question about, we're talking a lot about, I guess, these players as sort of like people and how different events they affect the way they feel, and how, to really play your best in a competitive game, you actually have to be in the right mindset. So there's certain things that we can say that people can do to manipulate, another person's mindset, but can we really regulate it? I know we're talking about it in such a way that, it sucks kind of, but I guess my question is, are we even thinking about putting any rules in place to affect that? Does that question make sense? And does anybody want to take that?
Are you talking from the sense that, I mean, we kind of made them all play out their sets even though they didn't want to?
Right, so I mean, there's yeah, if somebody says I don't want to play, can we ever say let's make them play? If somebody's asking somebody else to split or saying that they won't play seriously, not in an attempt to make them lose their motivation, but it's what happened, right? It's what we think happened. Any sort of anything in the realm of affecting emotions. I guess my question is not making very much sense, but maybe it is.
I think if somebody is so discouraged from playing that they want to forfeit out of the tournament, it's not our position to tell them that they have to sit down on stream. They have to let this other player embarrass them, basically. And it's just, it's not right. I don't think that Unknown should have been forced to play versus Kirby-Kaze after he had already forfeit that set. I don't think that M2K really should have had to play that rematch either, but I mean, when it comes down to that point, if it's for the intent of collusion, of trying to manipulate the bracket, that's one thing. But if somebody doesn't want to play, we can't tell them to.
Yeah, and I mean
Go ahead, Frog.
I mean, there are other situations where things like this do happen when the player is just not in the right mindset. We really don't talk about having, for example, this was a New York event, and especially during the DJ Nintendo versus Nintendo match, Nintendo had pretty much that entire New York crew behind him, screaming at him, trying to keep him down, and that, of course, is going to be disheartening. That also can extinguish a fire, but there is no conversation on whether or not that should stop. And honestly, for that type of thing, I don't think it should stop. This is all part of the game. It is competitive, not just in the game, but behind the game as well. You're not always going to be the hero in every situation. And this is all part of it, unfortunately. So,
you know, obviously we can't force anybody to do anything, but I still feel like the TO or whoever should make an effort to just kind of sit down with the person and explain to them, you know, what the situation is, and at least try to give them some encouragement to, you know, to press on. I mean, I think it's completely counterproductive to just state that the rule says you have to play, so play. That, you know, that completely ignores the humanity of the situation. And I think if the TO goes into the situation and, you know, explains to the person, you know, that this is what you're here for, and, you know, we would all like you to show your competitive spirit, and that's going to be a lot more productive in, you know, in getting getting finals to happen and getting entertaining finals and maintaining the competitive spirit of the tournament. So while we shouldn't just make a rule and say you have to follow this rule. We should say, you know, here's a code of conduct that we hope everybody is going to follow. And, you know, even though we can't really enforce it, people will respond to it if they understand that this is what we as a community want to happen.
Does anybody have any thoughts on a code of conduct?
I mean, again, this is going to be something we need to discuss later, so it should just be added to our document for, like, future. But
well, how do you feel? You feel it's pretty cool?
Having a code of conduct?
It's, you know, you feel like it's something that you wouldn't want to talk about? Just a quick...
I mean, what I take away from what Sheridan is saying is more that we need to be supportive of people who are going into those positions in the late game tournament, and if they happen to be discouraged, you want to be able to talk to the person before talking to just the player who has to play this match. You want to say to them, why don't you feel like playing the match? Mm-hmm. How can we motivate you to want to play the match? And speaking just to the player, I mean, a lot of that is internal. A lot of that is, my motivation is to win, is the pride involved, is whatever they might hold dear to them. But for some players, it's once they get to that position and once they agree to split, the significance of the set is no longer there. But, I mean, if you look at PP, you look at Mango, you look at HBox, you look at Armada, they don't care about the money. They care about beating the other person. They care about being the best. And, I mean, that always has to be the inherent motivation, and you have to make that clear to them. And it's just, it's really easy to forget that when somebody comes up to you at the end of the tournament and says, do you want to just split and get out of here? Do you want to just split and throw the matches real quick? And it's just, that's the code of conduct right there. That's what people don't want to see. People don't want to see people at the end of the tournament not trying because they've already secured the pot. They want to see people playing it out for that pride, playing it out for the ability to say, hey, I won my pot against an opponent who was trying and against an opponent who was strong. And that's just not what we have here. Everybody's upset because the final matches of round 5 were kind of a joke.
So,
what exactly happened in those final matches? I mean, I know Mewtwo King 6-0'd him, but what was Unknown doing? What was the general feeling during that?
It was reminiscent of the very first round's grand finals. I'm not sure if you guys remember it, but after we had that set with M2K versus Shiz, we had a Mango Mewtwo King set where we saw secondaries everywhere. And the same situation happened for this. Although Mewtwo King did play his main characters, you could see how in those grand final sets, Unknown was bringing out secondaries that, for a lot of people that do watch him, especially his tournament play, they weren't on the radar. That was very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good parallel. Yeah, and we had, man, ROM 1, we had one of the best sets ever, M2K versus Shiz, and then if I remember correctly, it was like Falcon Dittos, and yeah, I think that Unknown was, yeah, kind of not playing his best characters, and something that that I noticed was that even if, you know, maybe we think that people outside of the community might not have known that, you could tell by the feeling in the room, you know, the feeling over the commentary. You know, the commentators know exactly what's going on, and the feeling that they sort of projected was that this is a joke. So it was very obvious, I think, from start to finish. And a lot of people in this stream chat, so I was actually watching on stream, were wondering if Unknown was like throwing the first set so that we could have like a one-set grand finals to sort of, you know, re-simulate winners finals, something like that.
Yeah, Haz and I were on commentary for rounds, and I was wondering, I was hoping that, you know, this was maybe him trying to pick up on habits from MTK, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. And Haz, of course, he's not one to hold his feelings, and he said what I said earlier. It's just like ROM 1, when you're not sure if this is the way to go. And, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't pulling any punches.
I have a little difficulty with the ROM parallel, because at ROM, I mean, the feeling that I had was that M2K felt defeated.
Yeah.
Unknown didn't feel defeated. Unknown was just discouraged from playing because it was already split. It was already done. There was nothing to really prove at that point, and there was no reason for him to have to sit down and really focus on these matches because, I mean, the pride was already gone. He already had one set, which is illegitimate, basically, and, I mean, what's the motivation for winning that tournament?
So maybe a similar amount of hype, but for very different reasons.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that we hit a point, though, where this is a really large issue that affected all three of those sets, like mentality. So does anybody mind if we deconstruct that a little bit? Is there anywhere to go from there as regarding the facts of ROM?
I think maybe first we should talk about, this is kind of a sub case of that, but we should talk about just, you know, are people allowed to split? I mean, why are they not allowed to split? I mean, we can talk about, you know, competitive spirit and whatnot, but these are the players, you know, they can do, the argument that's been brought up is, you know, they don't owe anything to the stream. You know, they paid their money to enter the tournament. They can play how they want to. So I think maybe we should, I mean, do you want to address that first, or do you want to do something more general first?
I think that they tie into each other. Yeah, I think that maybe the mentality is a bit more general, and then splitting is like an example of it. We could actually, I think that this might be, it's been 45 minutes. This might be a logical point to take a 5-minute break. Is everybody cool with that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's work.
And then we'll start back up and talk about you know, we did the facts. Now we'll talk
what we
about
can do about it. You know, what's yeah.
I could use this time to answer questions from the stream just because.
All right, so then that's what I'll do. I'll leave us up. I'll go to a new scene, and actually, I won't even go to a new scene. I'm just gonna put the chat.
Yeah, if you want to moderate what questions actually get through and.
Well, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Right.
So people, everybody who wants to hang out.
I'll look at the stream and I'll ask you questions from the stream.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Be right back, guys.
Also, thank you guys for tuning in, and a big thanks to VGBootCamp for letting us use this as a medium to host this as well. So stream, while we're down, what questions do you have for Cactor? I have a question, Cactor.
Yeah.
What shampoo do you use?
Shampoo to use? Currently, I use one of those Axe shampoos, but I've been looking for a new one. So if anybody has any suggestions for, I don't know. I used to use one of those herbal essences shampoos back in the day. I think my hair was a lot better back then, though.
I used to use that too.
Yeah.
I use that, but I have long hair, so it got really annoying having to do shampoo and conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
So I've convenienced my life by moving to the 2-in-1, and my life has been so much better ever since then.
To answer our question I just saw, do I use a pink shampoo? My shampoo is actually like a metallic green color, which is why I picked it. So I've been known to pick out a lot of things in my life based on what color they are, simply because I like green.
King Funk, unfortunately, is not with us tonight. He did not know the time zone difference, so he was expecting us to be from 1 to 3 instead of 3 to 5. Yeah. Cactar, what's your favorite cereal? And actually, we're gonna follow us around.
What's my favorite cereal? I don't even know. I don't have a favorite cereal. I don't usually eat breakfast. Breakfast is like... I can't deal with cereal. I gotta get like an omelet, like a bacon and cheddar omelet. That's my thing right there. I love eggs. Apple Jacks. Oh my god. I haven't had those in years. I didn't know they still made those.
It's still good.
So if I'm just like going pure hedonism with my cereal, I'm gonna go Reese's Puffs. Like if I don't give a fuck about anything else, I'm definitely having some Reese's Puffs. But if I actually am, trying to care about my body to some degree, then usually I eat some kind of Kashi cereal.
Who does that?
Those are always really good.
Who does that? How? What? No.
Actually, now that I think about it, I really like Cinnamon Life. Because the way the milk tastes after you eat that, it's just...
I don't put
best.
milk in my cereal. I just eat it dry.
What?
That's disgusting. I can't deal with that.
I usually just eat it straight out of the box. I don't even pour it into a bowl. I usually just have like a box of cereal by my chair, and I just scoop little scoops out of it just kind of whenever. I just eat cereal throughout the day.
Does anyone eat Kix? I hope not. Like, cereal's garbage.
Oh, I thought you said a completely different word. My bad.
What?
Nothing.
Wow, I just sat down and heard something unspeakable.
Right. Exactly. All right, last question before we start this back up, I guess. Now that
you're gonna eat a little bit.
Oh, well, we can keep going then.
I heard some cereal talk. What's going on? We talking about the cereal tier list?
Word.
Did somebody figure out what the Cactuar pancake?
Yo, your mic is a little messed up, Bob.
Yeah.
I may have fixed it.
Yeah.
I think I fixed it.
I think just before we start, we can do some more questions. But before we start, I think we should establish like the next couple of issues we want to address, because we made some good progress in the first segment, but I think we were kind of a little all over the place. So it would be easier for everybody else to understand if we keep it just a little bit more structured, I think.
Sure.
So let's like agree on the next couple topics.
Sheridan, you can update a Google Doc, right?
I've been looking at it. Yeah.
You can edit it, dude. I promise.
Okay. Cool. So I think the next two things we should talk about are what were the things that contributed to this mess at ROM 5, and what we can do to address those. Those are very broad things, but we can...
Dude, I love you so much. I had the exact same thoughts. And I actually wanted to take it one little step further and sort of... So what contributed in my mind is like why this happened. I think it's the exact same thing.
Right.
And then there's two categories that I thought of. One is things that are neutral or in line with our goals, and the other is things that are like detrimental to the scene as a whole, or detrimental to any interested party, right? And those are really the only ones we need to talk about. The things that are contributing and also bad. So like Prague mentioned the crowd. Yeah, they absolutely can contribute to like, you know, things like this, but.
And I think that thing I mentioned earlier about the relationship between the players, the TO, and you know the rest of the community, whether that be you know the people at home or the people on the stream, that's kind of going to be a running theme.
Yeah, we could probably even extend that, right? There's the players, there's the TO, there's the people who actually do the streaming, there's the stream viewers,
and you know there's how we fit into the larger community in fighting games and you know potential advancement for you know our game status.
So then like potential viewers,
sure, yeah,
and sponsors who are a distinct group, although we don't know them yet. Alright, well I guess I won't eat then, even though I'm pretty hungry.
I mean, we could still answer some questions if you need to eat.
That's fine. I mean, we can answer like a couple more questions.
You having fun?
Maybe some legitimate questions this time.
And actually, even with that, again, I want to ask you guys, if you aren't already, please follow VGBootCamp here, Facebook, Twitter. They do a lot for us, especially the last couple of weeks. They've been nationwide, giving every single major LA stream for a bit, so definitely give them a shout.
Oh, did you want to add Fuzziness to the call, just to get on that European scene? Fair enough.
On blast.
If we had him at the start, that would have been fine, but it's just gonna...
Yeah, I feel like we got a feel for 4 people, and maybe, you know, I think that this is enough people for now.
Yeah.
Alright, Prague, you want to pick out some more questions while Bob stuffs his face over there?
It was really good, by the way. My mom made me a cheesesteak. You know, I usually take them without onions, but she puts onions in.
What kind of cheese do you get?
She just puts American, sometimes provolone.
Provolone's the best.
I go provolone.
Provolone's the best for sure.
Yeah.
It's always a treat.
It's not a debate. It's definitely the best.
Well, but I like
That was
cheese
an
whiz.
easy question. I wish all our questions were that easy.
What about whiz though? You throw a whiz in the mix, now you got like this wild card.
I've never had it with whiz. It sounds actually fairly disgusting.
That sounds like a Sheridan answer.
Yeah.
It's really good, dude. But you have to have it in Philly.
Ooh, we have a good question from the stream. Is it not possible to have one universal rule set?
Yeah, I was looking at that one is a good question.
Yeah.
It
definitely.
is possible to have one universal rule set, but that's not something that I would want. I mean, when I go to every individual region, I mean, I grew up playing, I started playing in 2005, late 2005 to 2006, and every region that I would go to would have such a different like flavor to it because each of the TOs kind of had their own set of beliefs as far as how the game should be played. And on the national scene, we do want to have some kind of common ground, some kind of unification of the rule set, but I mean, universal, I don't want to see that at locals. I want to see TOs kind of experimenting on their own, trying to figure out what works for them, what works for their local group, because really it's about getting those players to enjoy the game, whatever they want to do. You can always practice for nationals, you can always use the restricted bare minimum rule set, but I don't know, I don't see a need for it.
And I mean, it's convenient, but you know, if everybody agreed to everything, then you know, life would be a lot more convenient. But the problem is, not everybody agrees on everything, and the problem is, you know, are we within our rights to try to force people to use tournament set rules that they don't want to use? I mean, you know, we saw kind of what happened when Brawl tried to do that, and there was a lot of backlash against it. I mean, they once. I mean, it's one thing to say, here's a rule set, and you know, we suggest everybody use this rule set, and it's another thing when you have Apex, who you know, who is a TO. I mean, Alex Strife is a TO who's talked to individual TOs and asked them to use his rule set. just to be on this road to Apex thing. But it's still another thing for this, this backroom group to tell everybody that they need to use this rule set, or else they're not going to get featured on whatever. They're not going to get stickied. They're not going to get sponsored or whatever. That's what I object to.
Oh, you object to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely on board with Apex having a strict rule set, because that's between Alex Strife and a bunch of other TOs that he made personal agreements with. I don't think it's our place to have a backroom decide that every tournament needs to have this rule set or else X, Y, and Z.
And I completely agree with that sentiment. I think that nationals are one thing because you are getting a large group of people, usually people who are international, to come and play on this rule set. But for anything that's below national, say a regional, regionals can use what their local community enjoys playing, and if other people want to go to that region, they should experience that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Kato on that each community should have its own local flavor, but at least for nationals, we should have some sort of common ground or common thread, where there isn't too much deviation from an Apex to a Genesis to an FC, so on and so forth.
And that's something we're going to be talking to the major TOs about, just to see what they think as well. So,
Illuminati.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess the problem that I've noticed is that we don't really, so I wrote this down, supply and demand, like there's not a large enough supply of tournaments for the community at large to say, imagine there's 95% of the community that agreed with one rule set. It's not like there's 3 tournaments going on the same weekend that everybody can go to, and we can just say, all right, let's go to the one with the best rule set. I feel like that's the way that in a free market situation or whatever, it would work itself out. But
Very true.
And actually, you want to get started in 3 minutes, so it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, sure.
We can do
I
that.
have like 2 bites left. Can I have another follow-up question? So
Sure.
Is it possible to have dynamic rule sets? That doesn't mean anything really, but like, is it possible to have, let's say, just for sake of argument, melee backroom rule set and battlefield only, and some way of deciding in each individual set which rule set to go with? Something slightly more complicated.
I mean, that's gentleman's clause territory, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you agree to that with your opponent, then...
Well, that's like an extreme example. I just made it up in the past second, but...
Yeah.
The problem I have with that is... Well, I guess it's not as much of a deal in bracket, but in pools, the idea of a pool is everybody's got the same common set of opponents that they're trying to play against, and unless you have everybody playing the same rule, then you can't make as meaningful a comparison with the results of their sets.
But then the rules become part of the game.
I see. Yeah, but I mean, that's something that we would have everybody. I mean, everybody would have to agree that that's incorporated into the game. Yeah.
All right.
But there's one parallel, which is, in tennis, there's 4 majors, and one of them is played on clay, one of them is played on grass, and the other 2 are played on a hard court. Right. And they play quite differently. You may know that Nadal pretty much demolishes everybody on clay, but it's a different story on grass and hard court. So I mean, there's precedent in major sports for having regionals and nationals with slightly different rule sets.
Right. We have less than a minute until 10 o'clock. Scar, you want to give a quick shout out to Lean Melee?
Yeah, I might start it again.
You need to.
Yeah, I can shout it out. I'd rather shout out my Twitter. I'm at Bobby Scar. Feel free to, follow. Or ask me questions there. We'll be taking a look at them in the next break.
And actually, we'll be talking about Twitter, I think, in the next break too, right?
Yeah, that would be sick.
Cool. And we're back to air in 3, 2. Welcome back.
we're back.
Greetings.
How was everybody's break? Long time no talk. Alright, so we're back. Sheridan had a phenomenal idea of sort of laying out what we're going to talk about, and let's get right to it. So we talked about what happened at ROM. Now we want to talk about what contributed to all these problems and admit that to what was bad, with the goal of talking about how we're going to fix them. So,
Right.
should we start with the relationship between the players and all the interested parties, the relationship between all the stakeholders, really?
First, let's kind of identify the specific things that contributed to this.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, Juggle Guy, in his initial post in that thread, somewhat of a biased analysis, but a couple things that I think definitely should be examined is the first thing is we talked about this difference between Dave's stupid rule and modified Dave's stupid rule, independent of which one's supposed to be which. The fact is that they used a different one than every other tournament, and there wasn't enough. They didn't do enough to make people aware of this. I mean, you can say, well, everybody should read the rule set. Yeah, everybody should read the rule set, but if you can make people more aware of things, then you should do it, especially when you know that there's going to be some people that aren't going to do that. So lack of awareness of the rule set was one thing that he identified.
So I wrote that down as the TO's job to make the rules either consistent or clear.
Yes, absolutely. If you're going to do something different, you really need to sit everybody down and tell them that this is what's different. Unplug all the TVs, turn off all the stations, get on a table with a microphone, get everybody to stand around you, and lay it out for everybody. And people do that at tournaments. It's not impossible, so that's what you got to do.
Show. All right, so rules was one of them. I'm actually looking at the thread. Number 2, do you want to read it, Sheridan? Are you looking at it?
Yeah. So, well, point number 2 kind of merges with point number 1, which was, they were confused about the rule set. The players were confused about the rule set, Unknown and Mewtwo King, and they just started the set without getting confirmation from Cactus and Alucard, and I have no idea why they would do that, but they kind of poisoned the well after when they did that. So I guess you can't. Maybe somebody should have been there to just stop them in case they did something, but I put that more on the players than on the TOs.
Yeah.
But
That
I mean, that
point-
would.
Sorry. That point in particular, I do believe that is on Unknown. Unknown should have been able to say, I want to wait until we hear back from the TO to confirm this. It is unfair that M2K was pressuring him to begin the match, as far as I know. And I don't recall, but I think it was mentioned that the stream, whoever was running the stream, was also saying what's taking so long, yada yada. You got to give the players time. It's not your position to be telling them that they need to start the match if it's in the middle of the set, if there's a big decision to be made. So, right.
So then players really need to accept responsibility for what's in their control. Regardless of everything else, the fact may exist that it would have been very difficult for Unknown to actually put his controller down and say, no, I'm not playing until I know. We're sort of saying that's an option that he had realistically that would have played out in his favor.
Also,
Yes.
in that scenario, M2K should not be sitting there warming up between matches. I don't care that his opinion is that, oh, well, this is going to help me play my best. It's just, that's not appropriate. And I mean, I'll have a stronger argument for that at some point, but there's so much else to talk about right now that it's kind of like the least priority.
Yeah. We can't give everybody that privilege, and we're not going to, or we shouldn't, give him that just because he frequently says that that's what he needs and wants, and gets away with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And then number 3, from Juggle Guy's post at least.
Right. So the third item is the decision to replay Game 5. That's, I mean, I think it should be. I realize that there was a lot of frustration and confusion involved, and so I don't want to put him on blast too hard. But you know, once the game is done, it's done, and barring certain exceptional circumstances, which are up to the TO. But once, I mean, if both people played this match under the apprehension that this was a serious match, this was going to be part of the results, then it's done once it's done, and you should have just went with that. And the reason is that, you know, if you replay it, then people are using the information from the previous game in the rematch, and that just kind of, again, it poisons the well, it skews the results, and you know, one person is, if there's a difference in who wins, that person's going to be that they're going to feel cheated, and it's going to deflate them for the rest of the tournament. And you know, the person who wins, they're going to feel like it. You know, they're also going to have that feeling that it wasn't legitimate. And you know, again, that's what we saw with Unknown. He felt, as I understand it, you know, he was just kind of frustrated and deflated after that. So you know, that's why we can't have this double jeopardy and just force people to replay things.
So it's basically board game rules, right? If you take your hands off the piece, that's your
Done.
Exactly.
Can we at all talk about or draw a distinction between what's appropriate for, like, you know, what Sheridan mentioned was like extenuating circumstances or extraordinary circumstances versus what isn't? Do you know what I mean? Like, as soon as you added that, it kind of makes it more hairy, because this, I feel like, you know, Alucard did the best that he could in that he felt that this was one of those cases where it's like completely wrong.
Yeah, I'm having trouble coming up with an example.
As far as I know, the only time you replay a match,
like,
is
if somebody smacked the other guy before the
right.
game.
That would be something. If the setup turned off for whatever reason,
Yeah.
that would be another scenario. If the game glitched out, which doesn't happen really.
Yeah, but those would be things that affect the game in progress, not things that are already completed.
Right.
So then in the vast majority of circumstances, board game rules.
Yeah.
And we should make that, you know, basically in talking about it now, ideally we'd have a culture that sort of disagrees with that. TOs would never do it.
Yeah, and I would say, if the result was, I mean, if the result of the match was because one player, I mean, I believe, I'm inclined to believe Mewtwo King when he says he was ignorant of the rules or whatever, and you know, he was just doing his, you know, trying to get Unknown to agree to whatever. That's fine, but you know, if we find out that the result of the match was due to, you know, really strong coercion by one of the players on another, then you know, it's better just to make a decision about who wins instead of replaying it.
I do want to speak on Alucard's behalf here, just because you're not like calling him out for this, but
sure,
it is a questionable decision to make, and I mean, ultimately it was probably the wrong decision to make, but Alucard was under a lot of pressure in that moment, and it's not the kind of thing that you want to let sit for a long time. So when it came down to it, he made the decision on the spot, and he just went with it, which I do think is the right call. If you're going to do something along those lines, you stick to it. And I mean, Alucard at that point, it had been building up, and from his perspective, Mewtwo King was cheating. And the only way that he figured that could be resolved was by correcting the action that he felt Mewtwo King was cheating with. So to replay the match in his mind in that moment, it does make sense. It's just, looking back on it now, we could have played that completely differently.
Yeah, I mean, usually Alucard has a much larger staff in Rome. However, that certainly wasn't the case this year. In addition, he had a couple of scuffles with M2K. There was an issue with, I think, M2K having a set against Aether that Alucard was saving for the stream. He wanted X number of matches replayed from winners quarters on the PM stream. and M2K coerced Ether into playing it off stream against Alucard's wishes. So there was some sort of precedent for a bit of a conflict between Alucard and M2K at that point as well.
So actually, if I could clear that up a little bit, I think that what actually happened was that the set had started, and then Alucard, after the fact, sort of said that it was supposed to be on stream, and they didn't want to stop mid-game. And that was actually holding up a lot of the bracket, was that match. I could put Ether on blast. You know what you were doing, Ether. Play your sets when you're called. But I'm not going to put him on blast, because he's a nice guy. So, but anyway, yeah, whether or not it was communicated beforehand, neither Ether nor M2K were like, hey, let's play this on stream because we're supposed to. You know, that said, maybe when they sat down, they knew about it, and somebody said, you know, something or another. But my understanding is that it was an after-the-fact kind of thing, and they didn't want to stop and start again.
GimR is saying something in the chat that's kind of relevant here, which is that Alucard told M2K beforehand.
Yeah.
And M2K did not listen, but Ether did not know that this was the case. So,
okay.
I mean, there is fault on M2K there.
Right. So how much does this fit in with the larger topic, by the way? I'm trying to write this down somehow.
This is the TO and player interaction.
Yeah. So then my question becomes, you know, how much does this fall on the player to follow through, and can we regulate this at all?
To follow through with what specifically?
It's a request from the TO. You know, and do there need to be measures put in place that give TOs more authority? You know.
I mean, if I think often it's usually just a matter of having enough people to get to do what you want to do. I mean, it's from what Progress says, it sounds like Alucard was understaffed, and if he had had people helping him out, more people, you know, the guy running the stream shouldn't have to be the authority of people playing their matches. I mean, there should be somebody getting the people to the station and getting things going. It can't be the head TO doing that. He's got too much other stuff to deal with than to chaperone players to their stations, and the guy running the stream's got too much to do with too. So I think it's just a matter of staffing on that.
That's a great point. So not necessarily regulating, but staffing and preparing in such a way that, you know, it's almost a no-brainer.
Right.
I think speaking towards kind of a sense of player obligation or player responsibility, a large number of us don't really go to the tournament and think, oh, I'm going to help this tournament run better. Oh, I'm going to help this tournament be the best tournament that it can be because I'm going to adhere to all of the regulations, adhere to the tournament process, and help everything come to fruition. And I mean, that's a problem with all of us. We need to kind of understand that the TO can't be everywhere. We need to understand that it's not just about us, it's not about our placement, it's about the experience for everyone. And a lot of the time, that's not what happens. A lot of selfish decisions are made. We sit there and we play friendlies. We try to warm up when we're supposed to be playing our tournament matches. If you're not warmed up by the time your tournament set gets called, I mean, it is your fault that you haven't done that. You could say, oh, I got to the venue late, but it's your fault that you got to the venue late. You could say that, oh, I can't find a TV, but it's nobody's responsibility but yours.
Yeah, and, you know, some people have the mindset that, you know, well, I paid my money to get into this tournament. I can do whatever I want. And, you know, it's hard to just combat that directly. You can't just say, no, do this instead. I mean, you have to, you know, engender respect, mutual respect between the TO and the players. The TO should kind of be present in the room so that everybody can see him, and he gets kind of more of a personal, you get more of a personal vibe from the people that are running the tournament. That gets you more respect from people, and you know, you're never gonna completely get rid of the mentality of people who are just there for themselves. But you know, there's ways to fight that.
Yeah, so it just seems like that's a really, really big and hairy issue, which is basically that the interested parties just don't have the same goals. And so there are things that we can do, I think, to help them better align, or to enable one group to work with another group. So, for example, if we're trying to say, we're trying to get, God damn it, if we're trying to get the players to play on a stream or on a certain setup, the TOs can enable that a little bit better. And now, it's not necessarily that the interests are aligning, but one group is enabling another group to do, what's best for the greater good. But that seems like a discussion that would be kind of almost like a meeting or a panel where we would come up with, I guess, best practices or something like that.
Yeah, but I think it gets in. It kind of we can segue into the issue of the tournament is the TOs. I mean, it's the TOs and the communities and everybody's, right? So the people who come there, I mean, the TO put in and the host put in all the work to get it organized. So as far as I'm concerned, the TO has the right to set the code of conduct that he wants people to follow. And when you come to a tournament and pay your money, you are agreeing to abide by that when you go in there. And this speaks to what we can do about people splitting and people not playing out serious sets, because this is the conflict between I paid my money to enter my tournament, I can do what I want, which is true to some degree, and you also agreed to abide by the code of conduct of the tournament when you paid in, as kind of a tacit agreement. And so players need to understand that when they come in, and if they come into a tournament where they have no intention of putting their best efforts in, but the TO has built his tournament up to be something that's going to be streamed to a lot of people. This is going to be shared all across the Smash and fighting game community. Then he has the right to expect that from the people that come to his tournament, as long as he's made it clear that this is the goal of his tournament and this is what he expects from people when they show up, that they're going to get competition from people. And I think kind of what the frustration that I saw, especially from Kirby is that they didn't ask for all this attention. They didn't ask for 4,000 people watching them on the stream. They showed up to a tournament and they wanted to play people, and that's what they wanted to do. And I completely believe that, I forget whoever said, but Kirby was really focused to try to beat Mewtwo King all throughout the tournament until the rest of this stuff happened. So I think it's wrong when people are bagging so hard on Kirby and Unknown for what they did, because, like I'm saying, they didn't ask for this, and now people are getting on their case for not for not doing what we think they should be doing after the fact.
To speak towards TO responsibility, I mean, it's been a long belief of mine that TOs, they kind of identify with their tournament too much. A TO is a separate entity from the tournament. A TO should be the person who's acting out the process of that tournament. They're acting out the will of the tournament. You need to run your you need to run your tournament on schedule. Excuse me. You need to run your tournament on schedule. The tournament should be completely separate from any emotion that the TO has as far as DQing people when they don't show up. TOs need to be more strict, and it's just not the way it is.
Basically you're saying that they beforehand sort of should have an idea of how the tournament runs and then just sort of run that script according to like what they already said they would do, as opposed to getting upset with something and making an emotional decision.
Absolutely. And at the same time, it's avoiding that responsibility of, oh, this person that I know has come up to me and said, whatever, I want to go get food. I don't make a special exception for them. It goes by the tournament. I'm just acting it out.
So maybe this contributed to what happened. Like in a sort of general way, the expectation when you go to a Smash tournament nowadays is not that things are going to be strict. We have rules. Like we've had Mages DQ since I started 2007, and I've never ever seen anybody get disqualified or lose game one of a set, even though that's often in the rules.
You know what actually I like to do instead of the Mages DQ rule is if you're late, that's fine, but you have to pay more money to stay in the bracket.
Wow,
like
harsh.
It's a good
I like
rule.
it.
All right, I think we're getting a little sidetracked here, so let's get back to our.
Right, yeah.
Well, but do we agree with that, and is that like a problem? The fact that it seems to me that we do have rules listed out, but there is no expectation for TOs to actually follow that. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but like it's kind of a surprise when they do.
Yeah, and I mean, that's true, especially with the splitting thing, because, I mean, we kind of know that you're not supposed to, at least not above locals. I mean, locals, anybody can do what they want. The community is whoever showed up that day, so it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But, you know, these players, we know splitting has happened in the past, and it's ostensibly not what you're supposed to do, but we know it's happened, and we know that the TOs haven't enforced it, and so that's like another part of why this backlash is just I think way overdone, is because, you know, it's not in the context of the rest of what's happened with the splitting. So yeah.
So, but is that, yeah, a question that I have for everybody, is that a contributing factor? Can we say that, you know, we have certain, I don't know how to say this diplomatically, but I'm going to try. So, even if I'm saying it the wrong way, can we say that we have like these three top players at a fairly large tournament who, for one reason or another, at the time that they sat down to play, were not motivated to win for like pride or for love of the game or anything like that? Like, is that a problem that we need to address? Is that, you know, anything that we can really talk about?
I really don't think it's a problem. This is an aberration. As we said earlier on, a lot of people in this situation, split would not be in their vocabulary. It's not about the money, it's about proving that you're the best on this day. So it's definitely not an epidemic of any sort. It's just unfortunate that it happened when it happened in this case.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the idea that it's not an epidemic. This is definitely an outlier. This is not the norm. But is anybody else any thoughts on the idea that, you know, we could even discuss in an intelligent way that there's a problem with being motivated to play for the love of the game?
I think, you know, if you allow people to keep their motivation, then none of this happens. And I think one thing is, we can just say, you know, if you're gonna split, agree before the tournament starts. You know, so you keep whatever competitive spirit you have consistent throughout the day. If you're gonna split, I don't want to hear about it. I would prefer even just not to know. Don't ever ask somebody to split as you're walking up to the station. That is something that we can't have, just regardless. But we can't stop people from doing it. We can only, you know, it's more of a proactive thing. Like we give people reasons to maintain their competitive spirit, and we just have to kind of roll with what happens. And that's, you know, that's the attitude we should try to take, I think, is we facilitate, you know, competition. We don't try to restrict or you know, invade people's lives to make sure they're not doing something we don't want to do.
And the only other alternative, this was kind of brought up in the thread that's discussing all of this, is that there are rewards that we could be offering that aren't just monetary.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, that's putting a lot of expectation on TOs to go out and get things like trophies or whatever that nonsense is, and it's just...
All right, well, let's see if we can actually move on to that. So I think that we have a fairly good list right now. So we're talking about what contributed to this. You know, we're talking about inconsistent rules, unclear rules. players accepting responsibility, the board game rules idea, and some things about the relationship between players, TOs, and other interested parties, and two other. I'm just not going to read them. Do we think that there's anything more? Because I think that we're about at that point where we're ready to move on and talk about what we can do about it.
Well, in the chat, Fuzziness is talking about seating for brackets also being
Yeah.
Being a part of this.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to loop that into lack of resources / staff. So I feel like, maybe if they had more resources, more people, more time, they could have done a better job with seating.
Well, not even that, just if you win X tournament, you get a higher seed here. However, it's kind of difficult because we aren't as organized as EVO or things of that nature. We don't have that one major where everything culminates at. So we can't say, if you win at X, you'll be seated, X seeding points.
So for me to clarify really quickly, you're talking about like Apex seeding points.
Right.
Okay.
But the problem is we don't have enough tournaments that are spread out evenly enough, or that enough people travel to for these Apex seeding points to be properly divvied out. Nor do we have that one major tournament. I mean, Apex is on its way and doing a great job at it. We're becoming our EVO, but it's not quite there yet.
Well, anyway, anything else on? I'm sorry, Sheridan. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I think just to have that thing work, you need to have a community where everybody can show up to almost every event, and we don't have that because people don't make a whole lot of money off this game. People got their lives to deal with, so I don't think we can't. It's going to be a while before we can really just do everything by circuit points. I think it's a noble effort to try, but it's not going to be the solution for a while, if at all.
Yeah. Okay, so are we good on what the contributing factors? Do we want to talk about what we can do to address? Because I think we have a really good segue into that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that the most interesting option for me that has come up in our discussion, we have a few sort of quick solutions where it's like, someone replayed the set and that was, or replayed a game and that was bad. Let's just do the board game rule. Okay, so that's not very complicated. But what is more complicated is a key phrase that Sheridan said, which is facilitating competition, or the idea of enabling people to be more motivated. I think that's what we were sort of driving at with circuit points. Ideally circuit points would work in such a way that you really want to win because you get some reward outside of money. So there is a distinct tangible difference between first and second, even if you're splitting the pot. So are there other, is it worth exploring other ways to enable people to really want to win? So Cactuar mentioned trophies, and yeah, I agree that maybe that is above and beyond for TOs, but are there other ways that are free or, easy to implement that we're interested in?
I didn't think about that aspect of circuit points, because that is a good point. That it's what you take home is going to mean more if you have circuit points. It's not just about the money; it's for your seeding at future tournaments, and that's not a bad idea.
So can I actually ask a different question? Is related to this. It's a little bit off topic, but not super off topic, and I think it's interesting enough. Do any top players really care about having a high seed in pools? And maybe wouldn't it be super cool to get seeded into a bracket? Might it be more interesting to watch pools without top players? It's just something that I have been thinking about.
Well, that would be that would be where the seeding points would go to in that situation, where you're not going, if you get top, let's say, 8 in terms of seeding points throughout all the tournaments that culminate in that big major, you'll end up automatically seeded into the bracket. Whereas everyone else is left fighting for those spots. So
this is actually what MLG did in 2006. Is you had people who were guaranteed in the bracket, and then you had people in pools who were fighting for a certain amount of spots left over in the bracket. And that's a pretty cool idea, and it could be a way to give the top players a break and to actually reduce tournament time a little bit. But I think we would have to ask. I think it's more up to the top players to see if that's something that they would want.
The problem in the long term with that, though, is also that MLG had a final where it was invitation only, and only the people with the top 8 in points got to attend it. And I think there was also a bonus reward for being like the number 1 and number 2 at the end of that. And we do not have something like that. As it is currently, when we have points leading to Apex, for somebody to get a lower seed as punishment, which is being suggested for ROM, like remove seeding points from these players, all that's doing is punishing their opponent, whoever that may be at the tournament. It's not really affecting them.
Yeah, I mean, we can't punish them. There's no way we can punish the people at ROM for what they did. It's not going to be productive at all.
So I happen to agree with that. Does anybody have a different sort of idea? Does anybody think that we can or should? All right.
Not really. I mean, there was nothing in the rules
Were there any
at the point saying that we should, that this was illegal or can't be done. So,
were there any serious points on chat, or I mean, in the thread that were suggesting that we should punish people? Chat can help me out with this, because I don't think that I completely agree that it's it's not really possible at this point, and we just really need to learn from it and move forward. Right.
Yeah, I mean, even if it were in the rules, the fact is we can't switch up how enforcement's been happening, and the players, nobody has expected people to make such a big deal of splitting before, so we can't just decide now to punish them. We can change how we're going to do it in the future as long as everybody knows this is what's up, but no, we can't do anything about what just happened.
So another suggestion that I heard elsewhere, so circuit points is sort of related to it, a kind of, if we recreated the rankings, like power rankings, US power rankings, world power rankings.
Yeah.
That's a very, very tangible result of either winning or losing. Do we think that that's something that we should do, that we're capable of doing, that would enable people to want to win, seeing your name higher on the list?
I mean, we have the ELO system set up, but it's not accurate on a national scale, just because some regions are obviously much more active than other regions. You just have more inputs that allow you to judge one region greater than another.
Right.
So on a national scale, I mean, we could put together panels that, based on strictly tournament results of the last year, we determine at the end of the year who was the greatest winner, or whatever nonsense you want to call it. And it's not a bad idea, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, at least for me, and I've never been a top player, but I definitely think that I would, if I were ever in a situation where I were less motivated, I think that would, I mean, it just feels like there's more at stake.
I mean, even for someone like Music King, for a long time his motivation was to be considered the best. I mean, seeing himself be officially ranked below some of these other players might give him that motivation aside from just the monetary, so...
What do you guys think? Sheridan, Prague?
Well, I wanted to ask Prague because he said that he believes that this was just an aberration of the community at large. So I wonder whether, I mean, it seems like maybe he thinks that we might be trying to do too much by implementing these things. So I don't know. What do you think, Prague? Is this too big of a reaction?
Well, I mean, it's a really, really hefty goal. Because, like Cactus said not that long ago, certain regions aren't as active or as deep as other regions. Plus, you have to factor in the number of tournaments, number of attendance. I mean, you throw in, for example, Mexico. How do we judge them on tournaments? From them do we judge if it's a local in someone's house or a regional? It's hard without having a perfect circuit or affiliated tournaments and things of that nature. I think that for Pride, international seeding and power rankings would be phenomenal, but it's just so hard to implement. I'm not sure if it's even plausible.
Hey, can I make a crazy, wild suggestion? Anybody interested in hearing it?
Always.
Oh,
Not
fantastic.
I'm not.
Man, wow, 2 of you. There's usually that one guy who says no, but now we've got 2. I'm gonna have to rethink this the panel. So,
Hit me with it. Let's do it.
So, I was thinking about that too, and somebody, I can't shout them out because I forget who it was. Brandon, Homemade Waffles, brought up boxing and UFC and how they have a ticket. So I was wondering if anybody who's listening is interested in this idea, you know, get in touch with me and Brandon. We were thinking about maybe having, so what Prog was saying is there's certain people where we can't necessarily place them in power rankings because their variance is really big. They might be this good, but they might, you know, they might not be. We don't have a lot of confidence where they are. So we could, for those special cases, have to influence like a power ranking specifically, like prize fights, which I think would be really cool. You know, it sort of switches it up from what we have now, which is maybe a best of 3 or a best of 5, to something like a best of 7, or, you know, maybe even a best of 9, and have the stage list predetermined by some, you know, some process.
You know, we used to do that at Drexel.
Was it fun? Oh, we did! We did! It was so hype!
It was actually the idea that I had, and I eventually talked to, I think, PP about it, where we have an underground power ranking that is only affected by one-on-one matches.
Yeah, yeah. And so the idea is that, you know, you need to perform well enough in tournament to get your shot at these top names, and then those matches are the ones that we can really hype up on stream. They might even be better than finals because, you know, sometimes we just have an incredibly skilled player in finals who's just going to steamroll the other guy. So it's just an idea, and if anybody's super interested in it, please hit me up.
I think that could be really cool if we figure out the right way to do it. Like, it could be something that we do during, like, round 1 of pools or something, when there's, you know, the pools are mostly, like, 1 amazing guy, 1 pretty good guy, and 3, like, people who came to have fun.
Well, as the chat's been saying, I mean, we could, if we did do that whole thing with seeding and pro players being kind of excluded from the amateur bracket, while all this amateur bracket stuff is going on, we would have these exhibition fights going on, we would have crew battles going on, we would have whatever else involving those higher level players.
Okay, so again, I'm sort of going to put this back on our audience. If any TO is running like a regional scale or something that's, you know, if anybody's interested in following up on any of these ideas, you know, please reach out to any of us. So you see all our Twitter handles. We're all very reachable on Smashboards. And I think that all of us would probably love to sit down and talk about how we can organize on a larger scale. I feel like our community does organize, and a lot of people are doing really amazing things. But if we want to take it to the next level, we're going to have to organize to the next level. And if everybody's excited about these ideas, let's do them.
Yeah. I wanted to say one thing about the ELO rankings.
Please. Yeah.
So I have some doubts that this is really ever going to be useful. I think it's a great idea, and I don't want to discourage anybody from trying, but my opinion is that it's not useful unless it has predictive power. That means that you can use the ELO ranking to predict the bracket results better or as well as an expert smasher or TO. Because otherwise we can just use our brains to do it. So that's what I think is the proof is in the pudding for the ELO, and that's what I think they should focus on if they want to get acceptance.
So if I was somewhat involved in that, and if I may speak for Foxlisk, and I'm not sure if he still feels this way, but when we were working on it together, it seemed that he felt that there was no way to get it to a perfect place, right? And any information that was put out by it would be flawed, and so the more work that he put into it, that would make it seem like he's trying to say that it has predictive power, he was uncomfortable with, because maybe the community would use it the wrong way.
Right, well, what I mean is, before a tournament happens, make a prediction based on the current state of the ELO rankings, and then compare them to what the actual result is, and compare them to what a bunch of people predict. And what needs to happen is the ELO ranking has to do as well or better than the actual people. That's going to be what I think. That's basically how I judge the usefulness of it, because ostensibly the goal is to use this to seed brackets.
Right. So what I'm saying is that was not the goal of the SSBPD.
It was not.
I feel that it could be used for that purpose with more work, but as far as I understand, the purpose of it was specifically not that.
Okay. So and that it's perfectly fine to do that just for
funsies,
just for fun, for interest, just to see what happens. But if we're going to use it for anything, you know, I come from a scientific background, so I'm all about testing it against predictions, and that's where the meat lies.
Yeah. And so, by the way, if anybody who is very good with databases, web-based programming, wants to, maybe work on something similar or try to work with Foxlisk and his team, feel free to reach out. I think that with additional limitations, like maybe if we only put, international tournaments in, or some limitations, we could get it to that point. So if anybody's interested in working on that, I'm super interested in it, because I think it could save a lot of time for TOs. It has a lot of benefits. So, anything else on enabling motivation, enabling people to having some other reason to play?
I just think you really need to address it if it's going to come up. If you can see the shadows of it coming up, the TO and his team has to be proactive about it, and they have to address it at a personal level. They can't refer the people to rules that say you can't do this. So that's what I think the most important thing is for like specific situations that come up. Is that's what the mindset of the TO needs to be.
So that might even be like another role in the staff, like somebody who can hype somebody up. Just like that guy.
Maybe, yeah. I wouldn't. It would seem a little artificial if you had like a dedicated guy whose job was to do that.
Yeah, but
I think it has to come just from the staff.
It could be more effective though, right? You see like Phil DeBerry walking up to you, and he's about to tell you, "Hey man, get excited about this game."
That would get me pretty hyped.
Do you know what I mean? That's exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you see Phil walking at you, and you just know, all right, it's time to play.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, we can't put Phil on the staff as Phil, designated hype guy, in case you're feeling down on yourself.
I don't know,
It's
man.
just
Maybe we should ask Phil. All right. Anyway. Okay, we talked about there's something else that I'm super interested in is talking about TOs and their rules, and whether they actually follow their rules or not. Whether they even, I mean, I'll tell the truth. For Smashpocalypse, we really didn't have very many problems. But that said, I copy and pasted the rules from a WAS tournament, and I have no idea what they said. So if I was expected to know those rules and execute them, like a computer program would, or without emotion or whatever, I did not do that, and I think that the majority of TOs don't. So, what do people think about this, and is there anything that we can do about it?
Well, don't do that. Look at your rule set. But you're the TO. The TOs, if you want to lead by example, that's the place to start.
Well, it's not about me anymore.
I mean, I know. I should have said one instead of you.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't take it personally.
Yeah. I mean, this is something I said earlier, is that what distinguishes a good TO from a bad TO is not whether you can look at what happened at a good tournament and just emulate it. It's being able to deal with things that happen that are going to fuck up your tournament. It's dealing with adversity. That's what makes, because that something's going to happen eventually. And you know, if you understand your principles, then that's what separates a good TO from a bad one. Is, you know, being prepared for everything that can happen, everything that can go wrong.
So, do we think that we should have more explicit rules, or, you know, should we like revisit the way that TOs write rules? Can we come up with some kind of way where we do enforce things like timeliness, we enforce things like splitting, in such a way that, you know, it's not, like Sheridan said, sort of invading their personal, you know, privacy, really. I mean, you can't tell them what to do.
I think we should just revise the rule set, and we should also have a code of conduct, and we should write a guide for TOs. I mean,
A guide for TOs.
yeah.
Well, I've
Yeah.
discussed that in the MBR before, I believe, writing or having TOs get together and kind of communicate what best practices are. But
Yeah.
again, lots of projects back there are kind of on the
Yep.
wire.
Yeah. So, by the way, let me use this as an opportunity to sort of, what's the word, hype, shout out this platform, the podcast platform. So, I mean, I even tried to do the TO handbook. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was featured on Smashboards for a while.
Yeah.
And you know, we did get somewhere, but ultimately, I'm not sure that everybody saw it to the point where we got the people who were decision makers or the people who really want to be leaders in the community to really collaborate on it. So I hope that this platform, you know, us all talking, you know, hanging out in the stream, posting it on YouTube, and really talking in person, I hope through this we can really support each other. So when there's initiatives that we all believe in, or that, you know, even 10 of us really believe in, we can reach out to each other and actually do it. I think we need to find a place. I'm actually working with the team over at the Smash Wiki to have like a wiki with all the initiatives that we want to like start with, and people can sign up or whatever. I don't know. There's tons of ideas, but ultimately, if we want to organize and we want to get to the next level, we all need to, I think, you know, pull together, work together, and figure out a way to really make progress. And I think like what Charlie was saying is really important. We have a lot of good ideas, but we probably don't execute them as well as we could. You know, a lot of things get put on the shelf. So that's that.
Yeah, and you know, the MBR, that's really what the MBR is supposed to be all about. But I think the boards is just not the right format for it nowadays. So yeah, I completely agree with that. We just have to find a better medium for accomplishing that.
I mean, on that topic, we've
Yeah.
been talking about making the move towards social media as far as moving our membership, kind of repicking our membership and just installing that into Facebook, just because it is a lot easier to communicate with everybody else who's back there through Facebook. Again, using the podcast method to kind of reach out to the community and get their feedback on what we're working on actively would be huge, honestly. And I mean, this is something we plan to do going forward, and I mean, we hope we have everybody's support on it.
So just to call out the time, it's 10:48. I'm not sure how much longer we want to go. I would actually feel pretty good about talking about the MBR and talking about how we're currently set up, and then, you know, maybe calling it quits for tonight and just, you know, putting everything else for next week.
Well,
What do
how
people
about we
think
do
about
a
that?
quick little Q&A, and then we can talk about MBR as kind of a last words thing. 'cause-
Prague, Sheridan, what do you guys think?
Yeah, that's cool. There was also one. This is one issue that just came up that not a big deal that we don't have to discuss it now, but I think might be interesting is whether we should seed people, or how we should do our seeding in brackets, especially promoting from pools.
Yeah, and if I can offer another like action item, I think it would be awesome if anybody who has any idea about this and is really like passionate about it, we can try different ideas at different tournaments. Like, I think that we have a unique opportunity in that we have a lot of smaller local tournaments where you could spice up the rules and we could see what works and what doesn't. And then, you know, if we do organize and you share like the results of what happens, maybe we can, you know, figure out what the actual best thing is. So yeah, I think we should definitely talk about seeding and
Cool.
how we do it as a community.
we should have a little Q&A after it too.
Oh, show.
Here.
Do you want to talk about that now?
Um,
Is that what you're saying, Sheridan?
no, I think we should discuss the MBR first because that's kind of where we were.
Okay, we
close
can do
to.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so open it up to Q&A. What's up, chat? How you guys doing? Can I eat again? Are we on
No,
like
you're the
having fun
moderator.
time?
It's your responsibility to be picking up the questions and filtering them for us.
Well, I guess really quick while we're waiting for the first question, I want to again hype up my initiative to up the production quality with a lot of our stuff. It sounds like we have a team of Europeans right now who are working on an update how to play video, as well as another group that might be working on a short video explaining tournament rules, what goes into a tournament, and some of those basic things that might show up on stream. That would be pretty basic. There were two other things. Eggum had the idea of short matchup keys that would appear on stream as well. And I'm missing the third one, so I'll skip to number 5. We had the manifest idea, which I think all of you are part of at this point, where we have pro players critiquing those that want and are asking for help. So any of you guys are interested with any of those, and especially those that are involved with the arts media, especially you musicians, please let me know. You know how to track me down.
Yeah, I think that initiative is super awesome. If you want to copy paste the URL into the stream that might be a good idea.
Well, it's not going to let you post it, but if you
You
go
just
to
switch to the dot with the dot. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's too much effort. If you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/prog2112FOABP, it's the last updated video. Check it out.
What are all those numbers? I'm not looking that up.
Yeah, I didn't listen to any of that. Anyway,
Prog.com 12389Q. What is this? Oh man.
That's what you used to put me in tournaments as. Should remember it.
Oh my god, I kind of remember it. All right.
Yeah.
we're getting old. We don't remember these things very well.
Yeah.
True.
All right, do you want to start pulling out questions?
I'm
Anybody?
looking for
I
questions
saw
right now.
S2J say that, do we really think this is going to happen again, and is this a big deal? So Sheridan actually asked Prog the same question, I more or less. But I would be interested to hear, like the legitimate, like a good reason why we shouldn't try to address this sort of preemptively if we can.
The issue
It obviously happened once, right? And it happened at like probably the worst time that it could have. I don't know.
I mean, this is one scenario, and we're saying that it's a one-off, sort of. But, I mean, not to call anybody out, but we've had a long history of problems with certain players. And every time it happens, we kind of just say, oh, they're going to be better the next time, or, oh,
yeah,
we'll make some changes. But then, as time passes, we just kind of forget about it. So I feel like Scar in this situation has done a really great thing and blown it up enough that we have awareness out there and we're not just blowing it off and saying, well, if it happens again, we'll address it. Because it has happened, it's just, we forget.
Sheridan, what did Einstein say?
He said a lot of things.
What's that big thing, though, that relates to right now?
I don't know.
Never mind, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Well, it's something about, like, if you do the same thing over and over, you're freaking crazy.
Yeah, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
That's right.
Over and over.
So
basically.
we're just trying to do something slightly different so that we're all better off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. But here's one thing that people have brought up in the thread is that are we using a double standard now, judging KK, M2K, and Unknown for what they've done compared to what's happened in the past? I mean, it seems like what's the major difference between this and other instances of this is we had 4K people watching on the stream.
Mm-hmm.
So
is the question, like, is that actually a major difference?
Right. Is that should we be using that to
Has
I mean,
anything of this scale ever happened at a regional size tournament or even a national size tournament? It's just, I mean, splitting happens all the time at locals, but I mean, to me, that makes sense, and it's not something that we necessarily need to discourage. It's just, this isn't a case of splitting. This isn't a case of sandbagging. This is a case where players did not want to play the game anymore because of the events that occurred. So I feel like it's really unfair for all these people to blow up Kirby Kaze, Unknown, even M2K, and try and criticize them for having these substandard matches when there's a lot more that goes into it than that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing I said earlier about they didn't ask for 4,000 people to be watching them. What I meant by that is they didn't come to this tournament with the expectation, with the knowledge that this was going to be something where they were putting the community on display for everybody, and they didn't ask. And that's what it was. Is we had a tournament where we had a lot of people watching. It was for everybody to see, and you know they didn't ask if they wanted to be a part of that. It was just expected of them right when they got there, and they're being blown up because they didn't adhere to that. And I can really feel that that feels like a big imposition when all of a sudden you're told that you're expected to act a certain way because all these people are watching. And it's one thing if this was made really clear to everybody before the tournament, is that be on your best because everybody's watching. So I completely feel for the people getting blown up right now. I think it's not deserved at all.
So GimR wants to get on the call, and I'm going to bring him on. But let me actually just ask a question really quickly. So this is the way that I sort of have been thinking about this, is essentially who's been maybe hurt the most by what happened. And I think that the VGBootCamp stream probably took a big hit, right? God Is My Rock came all the way out. He expected something and he got something very different. So he took a personal hit, and the product that he put out wasn't what he expected. Also, future TOs who I guess are supposed to be reaping the benefits of the growth of our community, they're also hurt. But we don't have any sort of structure in place where the big TOs and the prominent streamers are representing their interests. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if we had a structure in place that would look something like all of those people having a quote-unquote union or whatever, right? And they wouldn't agree to even stream a tournament if they don't feel that there's enough protection in place to prevent something that's going to really hurt their product. It's almost like he spent that money to come out expecting some return, but he actually lost twice. It feels really bad. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I want to get GimR in here because I don't think a lot of people know.
Let's pull him in now.
Sure.
Let's pull him in, but I want him to explain what he went through to get to this tournament.
All right, guys.
First and foremost.
Welcome Calvin to the call. Calvin, GimR.
Special guest.
Make sure your headphones plugged in and that we don't get feedback, or I'm going to kick you out.
My hair. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
So, yeah, please, what's up, dude?
That might be me.
Would you say nothing?
No, you're good.
You can hear me.
One second, sorry,
maybe
my
he
bad.
can't. Maybe
That
he
was
can't
me,
hear
that was
us.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to address the point that Hyuga made, or Sheridan made. I think that point's kind of bullcrap, only because... Now, I'm not trying to be offensive, because, it's expected at any tournament that when someone enters the tournament that they're playing to win. Like, that's expected at all tournaments. I know the circumstances were different because of all the stuff that happened, but, I mean, like, regardless if we have 20,000 streamers or one viewer, like, it's normal to expect someone to want to win the tournament. And at most tournaments I go to, that happens. And if people split, they usually keep it on the side. But, like, I'm not expecting... Like, it's not like we're expecting them to put on a show. It's just play like you normally play. Like, you're supposed to want to win. This is the first time either of them got the finals. But I do agree that there was a lot going on and people were getting emotionally affected, etc. I probably shouldn't have forced people to play, but I was getting really impatient because of things that happened with Mewtwo King earlier and everything surrounding my trip to ROM. But I guess, Prague, you wanted me to talk about that.
Yeah, please talk about that.
Could I push on that just a little bit though? So
Yeah.
we do know though that in the past it's happened that people have not played like they normally would. Do you know what I mean? So Sheridan's just saying the players just acted the way that they normally would. Like, I feel like it's not the most uncommon thing in the world that somebody's playing the game, they don't feel like playing anymore, and so they don't for one reason or another. And Sheridan's just sort of saying it just so happened that it was, you know, at a big tournament and it was on stream, and it's kind of like a perfect storm. But it's not that, you know, it's never been the case that we have some way to enforce people to play to win. We just don't have that mechanism.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Is, you know, they've done this in the past, and they maybe, I mean, they might have you could say they should have expected it to be different, but I mean, they didn't see at that time any reason that it would go down any different than it had in the past. And but all of a sudden there's that expectation on them from the stream, and now that's being used to you know, to criticize what they did when it wasn't in the past, and that's the only difference that they can see. So that's what I mean to say when it's...
I understand what you're saying. That makes sense, but to be fair, at Big House 2 we also had 4,000 viewers, and Unknown and Kirby Kaze also played on stream, and it was announced multiple times in the day how many viewers we had on the stream. Like, hey guys, we have 3,000 viewers, blah blah blah. Maybe I should have done that there. Maybe I should have been like hyping people up because of how many people were watching, but we didn't have a mic, so I didn't do it. So I can see what you're saying though.
Yeah, and so just to tie that into what we were talking about earlier, I think that's a great point. You know, these are sort of ways that we can enable people to really want to play their hardest. We can hype them up that way. And to be honest, you know, I thought that it was kind of strange that in M2K vs Unknown Set 1, there really wasn't that much hype. You know, my voice is hoarse because I was screaming, "Go M2K," because I'm the biggest M2K fanboy in the world, even on FD Game 5. But, you know, point being, it kind of felt like, you know, deflated. And I think that any way that we can really pump things up are going to be good. So anyway, Prague had something that he wanted to ask GimR to talk about, so go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand like what GimR sacrificed to get to this event, and how little sleep he got, or how short he was at his house. I wanted to talk about that.
All right, it's fine. Oh, by the way, shout-outs to Bio, because he made it happen too. We got to give him shout-outs. He was there. Yeah. He's a part of VGBootCamp. 50% from each of us going into this tournament. But basically, I went to Cali for Kings of Cali. I stayed late. I stayed later. So I stayed till Thursday. I got home. My flight kept getting delayed. I was on a buddy pass, so like they kept pushing me and pushing me. I almost didn't get home on time. So I got home at like 1 a.m. I went to eat with friends, so I stayed out till like 3. Got home, went to sleep. Woke up at noon. Started working on ROM 5 graphics. This is Friday. And so 7 p.m. Bio came, picked me up, put the equipment in the car. We drove to Prague's. We got there at midnight. I wasn't done the graphics yet, so I stayed up till like 1 or 2 making the graphics. Wake up at 8, get Prague in the car, drive an hour to the tournament. We get there, the tournament's not really set up yet, and our area's not ready, so me and Bio go and eat. We come back, set up the stream. Internet isn't working. Luckily, somehow my Sprint phone had 4G LTE, which never happens. So we set up the stream. So yeah, I was running on fumes the whole weekend.
And didn't you take off for work as well?
I had to take off Friday and Monday, so yeah. And I had to, oh yeah, and we did the event for free to help Ellicard out. We knew that, you know, he didn't really, because of Sandy and stuff, you know, we wasn't sure if he was going to make anything, etc. At the end, he gave us $20 for gas money, which we thanked him for. So yeah, so I lost like $300 total doing this. And no, the ad money did not pay back, but we did get a lot of donations. We got 300 there, and then someone, Ripple, contacted me, and he donated an extra $150. So we made a total of $450 in donations. that weekend, which we're going to put towards a mixer and a docking station for the laptop. So that was definitely a positive. Also, like we said before, all of ROM was not negative. Like, it was a really good tournament. It was a really fun tournament. The stream was hype. There was a lot of hype things happening. We got a lot of viewers. Like, the first day, we only had 500 viewers. So us going viral, and when we say viral, we say getting up to like 4,000 viewers, was looking really grim. It turns out like somehow we didn't get on the front page queue on Twitch. I kept emailing them over and over and over again, and eventually they got it. They were like, put us in, and then we got viral. So that was pretty hype. So yeah, and I have nothing against Unknown, Kirby Kaze, or Mewtwo King. It's nothing personal.
So can I ask you what your thoughts are on what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is sort of like measures to protect yourself from, you know, anything that you don't want to put on your stream? Like, do you think that's something that you should, you know, you should work on, or the streaming community should work on, you know, or the TO should, you know what I mean?
To measures to protect the
like
stream.
Basically, if your expectation is that everybody's going to play hard, like you ask the TO or you have some kind of interaction with the tournament itself to make sure that that's going to happen, that you're going to be, you know, providing a service to them, and that you're going to get what you need in return.
Yeah, I think it's just a culture that needs to grow. Like, I think after ROM 5, I think basically everyone knows now that they shouldn't be doing that. So I think that's a good step. Maybe the TO could say something in the thread. If they have a mic, it's a lot easier. Like, if we have starting to build up a lot of viewers, because I'm sure people get hyped when they know a lot of people are watching. They want to play good when they know. Maybe it was my mistake not bringing that up to the players, because I know if I knew 4,000 people watching and I was in Winners Finals, I would want to look really good, personally.
Yeah, and I forgot to. I saw you at KOC, but I forgot to thank you for all the work that you did there, because I mean, you always do a great job. So I just want to say, as a TO, I appreciate you know, everything that you've been doing so far. So, and just to keep it up.
+1 for sure.
All of VGBootCamp, not just me. I want to put that out there.
Yeah,
like,
that's what we mean.
Second person plural. You.
Bio, my brother Aposl, actually, and Koku. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Oh yeah,
Eyesight. He's going to start running West Coast streams on our channel to get West Coast more, you know, viewers and stuff, because we have so many followers. Should definitely help out. Yeah. That's Brawl and Melee. I know we've been doing a lot of Melee lately, but I just want to put that out there.
Melee's the best game.
I agree.
Oh man, we gotta get at least one of those on every podcast.
Yep.
All right, so what's up? What do we want to do? Want to keep going?
I could keep talking. I'm feeling pretty good.
I can talk
It's
all
up to
night.
you guys.
All
I'm
right.
good.
All right, so GimR, am I kicking you off or what?
Yeah, you can kick me off.
All right, man. You feel like you said what you had to say?
Yeah, I said my part.
All right. Thank you. How do I do this? There it is. Bye-bye. Farewell. All right. So.
So maybe the bracket seating topic that I brought up, or anything else if you guys want to get to first?
Yeah, there was brackets. We got two big things that we wanted to talk about, and let's try to keep them, you know, well, you know, wherever we go. I really want to talk about the MBR. I think that we have a great opportunity to talk to Cactuar about it right now. You know, he's been on the inside. He knows how it works. There are limitations to, first of all, Smash boards, and I guess the structure we have in place that maybe keep us from moving forward as quickly as we can. He was talking about some better ways to do it, and you know what the reality of that is. And then second, we have the topic of seating in general. Any ideas on how we can do it better than we do it now? And I don't know. What are you guys more interested in talking about?
I don't care either way.
What do you guys think, chat?
Well, yeah.
So press 1 if you want to hear about what. Press 2 if you want to hear about what score.
What'd you say?
Press 1 if you want to hear about what topic.
Oh, that's so smart. Yeah, press 1 if you want to hear about the MBR. Press 2 if you want to hear about seating. Do it right now. I want to see a bunch of numbers. Let me see numbers. 1. We got 1. Wait,
Got a 1.
Does anybody know which was
Oh,
which?
you got a 2. Oh no, it's
It's a little split up.
Wait,
I
is
don't
it
know.
2's gaining.
I see
Oh,
some threes.
dude,
Oh,
that's
Threes.
what-
okay.
ruining
Somebody's
it.
really funny with 3 and
3 is actually for me to take my shirt off, so.
I think
I'm
the
seeing a
vast
lot of
majority.
idea.
I'm seeing a lot of ones.
Vast
All right,
majority is 1. All right.
yeah, okay. One
We
it
can talk
is.
about MBR. I mean, Sheridan and I are both leaders.
You're the unofficial king of the MBR, man.
I want to address that.
Heavy
I
lies
am
the
often-
crown on the head of the king of the MBR.
Anyway, so we have a lot of issues with the MBR. We had restructured recently because the prior MBR was basically just like a boys club that was founded in the Midwest, and then just really had people brought on who were friends of friends and all this other nonsense. So at some point, not that I was trying to be that proactive, but we decided to restructure, drop the entire membership, and then start it over. And the previous idea was that the MBR was really like supposed to be this place where good players went and discussed strategy and made decisions on tier lists and rule sets. And that's kind of shady because, I mean, why are you hiding all the good information to just the top level players? And then on the same page, it's why is it just these people that know people from the Midwest? So going forward, I wanted to change that towards more we contribute to the community. And to do that, you have to look beyond just tier lists and rule sets and look at what kind of projects you can do that can provide information to everyone else and that can kind of bring players who aren't necessarily the cream of the crop, and if they want to participate, to be able to interact with whoever they really want to that's back there and put out things such as information databases. We had a lot of work done on the ELO project again from the back room, and I don't know, there's a lot of projects back there that we have just kind of this idea that we can accomplish all of this, but we just need people who are willing to put time in, and that's kind of a problem. It is a 10-year-old game, and I don't know, to spend your free time on a project as opposed to just playing it, it's really difficult because most of the time I just want to play Melee. I don't want to sit there and talk about how I can help somebody else, even though I do a lot of that. But so we went out there, we put out an application process, which was more based around what people have already contributed to the community and how willing they are to, I don't know, do work on some of these projects. But what ended up happening was, first of all, we got shifted down to the bottom of Smashboards, which in itself, it doesn't sound like such a big deal, but it really is. It's a different... We used to be just part of the actual Melee discussion, like sub-thread, and now we're in some little back room that nobody bothers to check. So, I mean, we kind of took a hit in people being contributors from that, and then it's just, again, difficult to get people to want to contribute in the long term. So, I mean, we did have a couple projects that were successful, but again, it sounded like it was just coming down to being tier lists and rule sets again. And I don't care about tier lists. The rule set is a big deal to me because that does affect everyone. But all the other projects we had back there, we had people initially be interested and then kind of drop interest. So, I mean, to me, one of the big problems I see is that the forum model is really outdated. I say that all the time, but it's just, it doesn't help that we have to go through this huge process to just get posts in there and then expect other people to go to this location and look into this back room and reply to anything. Like, we have better methods, there's new technology, and one of the biggest ones, unfortunately, is Facebook. And I mean, every region has a Facebook group at this point, and the Facebook groups are, I'm pretty sure, all more active than the forum, like the sub-forums that they have on Smashboards.
Can I get
Yep.
a quick count on that? Yeah, NorCal definitely agrees. I guess Prague's from the same area, more or less, as Cactuar.
Yeah, before this, I rarely checked Smashboards once every 2-3 weeks.
Right.
I'm logging, I see New York Smash, East Coast Melee, Long Island Melee, and then Cali for some reason too. I don't know why I'm in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I'm
think
going to those nests.
because it lets you see everybody else who's in your community as well. It's not just, oh, we have these forum names. It's, oh, this is my friend yada yada who lives over in whatever town that's close by to here. It gives you a place that everybody's on Facebook anyway. It gives you a place that you can just access easily. And yeah, long story short, I think in the long term we are going to be looking to kind of move our actual discussion center something that is more accessible, such as basically. But I mean, we'll still have the NVR in the back, but who's going to use it really?
Sheridan, do you have anything to add to the to either of those ideas?
That's pretty much exactly what I was thinking. Nobody has the time or inclination to check these boards anymore. I mean, I feel like we all kind of know what needs to be done or what we could do to facilitate growth in the community and to keep it better organized and get more information out there, but just the forum is not the way to do it. I mean, it's great for keeping information, easily accessible, but it's not good for getting things, keeping conversation going and actually getting things done. So I'm all for a move to whatever format we decide is best.
Right, and a big part of that is, I mean, we have this structure where I'm considered to be the leader, I guess, of the MVR, but that was never the intention because, I mean, even though I'm called that, there are 3 other people with the exact same position that I have. That kind of goes unknown. And
yeah, just because you were actually doing shit when you did that, and I was not. I was mostly.
We all
busy,
have our like
quote unquote busy. Yeah.
But I mean, really, what is going to end up happening is that the MBR is just going to be. It sounds really elitist, but I mean, I guess that's what it is. We're just going to invite all the high-level, top-level players into it, and we're trying to make the process a lot more democratic as far as what goes on in the Smash community, so that if there is a change that we want to make, that change is discussed very thoroughly. It's not just, oh, some people voted on it in the back. It's, oh, if I want to see what's going on, I can just go to this group or go wherever and, I mean, give my input. But
yeah, I mean, the only reason we had it private was, I mean, there's just some people that don't contribute to discussions meaningfully, and needed a way to keep it in line.
It's a good way to put it. I guess we could leave that there. Yeah, I think that the biggest points that sort of hit me was, first, Sheridan said we all have a sense of what needs to be done, or what we could do to make the community better, and I think that's something that's really important to recognize. So, and maybe just the tools that we have or the tools that we're using aren't the best to get things done. So, we should definitely keep thinking about that. And yeah, I'm excited to see something different. The other thing that was really interesting to me was sort of how MBR sometimes implements things, and there's no sort of democratic way or really any way to give feedback and sort of veto. There are certain things that maybe I would have, personally said, whoa, I want to talk about this so that I can at least understand what the idea was behind it. So I'm very excited to hear more about that. Yeah, word. We want to talk about seating? I'm pretty happy about that idea.
The question is, when are we actually going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I don't know. I'm definitely not going to be able to engage in a major project before the new year. I can tell you that much. And
it's like 1 month.
Yeah. Maybe into January too. So we'll see.
Cactus, do you have any inside information
about seating?
About when we might possibly see an MBR move?
Oh, I wasn't paying attention at all. Okay. Yeah.
You do have inside information.
It's whenever I stop being lazy.
Yeah.
Do you want any help on that? Anybody who wants to help with that, let Cactuar know.
It's completely my fault. I swear to God. I take all responsibility.
No, only because it's expected of you. It should really be expected of all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be your fearless leader for a little while anyway.
You're the best.
Yeah, so they say.
Now we're going to talk about seating. So I might not have a lot to say about that. So I'm actually going to give you guys actually probably give Sheridan the driver's seat on that one.
Yeah. So I got into an argument with somebody in the back room about this. Not really argument, but debate. So the way that I generally do seating at my tournaments is, you run pools, and let's say you have 16 pools and you take the top 2, so you're going to make a 32-man bracket. So I've got my top 1 and 2 from each pool. I use the TO promote to bracket function, which always seeds 1 and 2 against one another and ensures that there's no people from the same pool playing each other anytime soon. And some people think that you should just leave it at that because otherwise you're introducing bias into the bracket. My opinion is that so what I usually do is I make a kind of a rough 1 to 16, or not even necessarily that far, but 1 to something of people who I think are clearly the top seeds in the bracket, and I move them around so that they will meet in winners finals, winners semis, winners quarters, whatever. And then I also try to make sure that there's not any regional matchup in the first round. If the second round, if I can avoid it, but usually just the first round. So I do that, and then I go back and make sure that nobody's playing somebody from their same pool in the next 2 rounds also. So that's how I generally seed brackets. And I got put on blast because the idea is that maybe that's introducing bias into the bracket. So, and that you should just, you should have it be quote-unquote unbiased. I think biased is the wrong word, but another point for later. That you should just, whatever happens in the bracket, you do it. And if you don't like it, just hit generate a new one or something like that. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that.
So essentially the argument is to leave it to chance as best we can so that there's no, like, I guess, conscious sort of manipulation of the bracket.
Right.
Well, I have my opinions.
Yeah. So Fuzziness is saying, couldn't that be solved by a double feeding system, aka previous tournament results, pool results? And yeah, so what I do is I always, before a big tournament where people from other regions are coming, I go and look at their power rankings, and I always get people from other regions to come and help me seed when I do this. So it's not just my opinion; it's me and at least 2 other people that are helping me do this. So I try to eliminate bias at least in that way.
Yeah, so I mean the biggest I'm sorry, I'm just going to say one quick thing. The biggest question that I would have is, like, if somebody is arguing that you should press the random button until you get exactly what you would have created while thinking about it, then that makes 0 sense to me at all, right? Like, if you already know what the rules are, you're just going to press randomly seed until it gives you what you want, so why not just do it?
Well, I mean, I think I might be projecting that onto him. I think he just wanted to do random and let it go.
Okay.
And that's because that's just no quote-unquote bias at all.
Right. So if people have to play within region or wrong seeds, you just play it out.
Right.
Kaitor.
Yeah, I have a... I don't know if this is even on topic. It might be slightly off topic. It's the use of top 2 out of pools. I just don't understand why TOs are suddenly doing this where they're only taking 2 seeds out of pools, because that's just putting a lot more responsibility on them as far as having to separate out only first and second seeds, as opposed to getting results from pools that allow you to seed out to maybe top 4 positions. And it's just I mean, I'm not a TO.
No, I just use that as an example. When possible, I mean, in my perfect world, I would run pools of 8 and take top 4 in each round, but that's not always possible. Apex, there was time limitations there, and that had to be top 2, although that wasn't my personal decision. At the large Rule 6 regional that I and Bobak ran, it was either straight bracket or pools with top 2. And I just opted to do pools with top 2 because we had enough time to do it, and it was better than a straight bracket. So that's the only reason that I would do top 2. Otherwise, I completely agree with you.
I just feel like the amount of information that you gather from having top 2 out of pools is very limited compared to the information that you get from having top 4. Because, I mean, having 1 through 4 seeds, there's a huge skill differential between pretty much every player, and being either a 1 or a 2 doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, and also if you are the second seed, or if you are a third seed in that situation, it's possible for you to have only lost one set and still be eliminated because of tiebreakers, and that's kind of janky.
Right.
Yeah, I heard a few cases of that. It's really deflating, I think.
When did we start using this term deflating? Because what is
it's just a
inflated?
word.
What is inflated that is being deflated?
It's like
Tell me,
your
exactly.
spirits. That's exactly what I was going to say. So two makes a truism.
All right, fair enough.
So anyway, the seeding aspect. So is it biased to what I'm doing, and should I not do that? What's the argument for and against, each side? That's what I want to know.
Well, I guess I have a counter question. We usually do pools with top 2, and we brought up larger pools with more people escaping. Have we ever thought of doing something similar to what? I mean, I don't want to really, continue to compare us to the FGC, but they do basically bracket pools where X person gets out in winner's side, other person gets out loser's side, and it's definitely more of an uphill battle, but could that have some benefit?
I mean, I feel like that's almost functionally equivalent to doing a straight bracket. It's only different from an organizational standpoint. So, I mean, I don't think it affects the results one way or another. I could be wrong about that. Plus, when you in a bracket pool for the losers finals to find out who's getting second, you can play somebody that you already played before. So it's just a matter of organization, convenience, and whether you have enough setups or whatnot. That's just my understanding. I have never run a tournament with bracket pools, so yeah.
So Sheridan, I mean, I would just say that if you have, so what you said to me, and I wrote it down, seeding of top X, maybe the top 16 or so, based on power rankings. No regional matchups. It's based on whether you're in the same region or not. No one plays from the same pool. Okay, that's actually a fact or not. If you're seeding based on objective criteria, then your seeding is necessarily objective. I think that if somebody has a serious objection to what you're doing, I would say that, based on what you told me, it's on them to come up with that objection and find out if you're meeting their standards or not. But, if you're seeding based on objective criteria, then, I mean, I can't say that you're seeding in a biased way. I don't actually understand how that even makes sense.
Yeah, and I always keep 1 seeds as 1 seeds and 2 seeds as 2 seeds. This kind of came up in response to a situation where if you have an ostensible 1 seed where who fucks around in pools and gets second, right? Then you have to keep him as a 2nd seed. You can't switch him to a 1st seed. That robs somebody else of the 1st seed that they accomplished. Completely agree with that. That's readily apparent. But what I said was that when that happens, I usually try to match up that person against one of the weakest 1 seeds, because otherwise, you get a matchup. You're going to get something first round that's otherwise from what you normally expect. And
I take it Mango has given you a lot of experience with this?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and doesn't that lead into the larger point of why are we doing this? Does Mango care about playing people who he's obviously better than? Do most 1 seeds actually care about going through pools? I mean, I actually just question why we have these matches, because I mean it makes it harder for mid-level players to distinguish themselves. It might be cool for low-level players, but I mean we can have, there's other ways to make that happen. So why are we even doing this in the first place?
So this is an argument for having those points
bracket,
where
amateur
people.
bracket,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Pro bracket, amateur bracket. So you don't have to deal with that.
So Sheridan,
So,
why don't we do that,
in the
man?
situation where that does happen, we have to have a way to address that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense to me too. So
do you think it's appropriate for me to, even though somebody's a 2 seed, if I know they are better than, not only most 2 seeds but several 1 seeds, to put them against a 1 seed that's that's on the lower end of the set of 1 seeds. Basically, I don't feel like I should have to treat all 1 seeds as equal to one another and all 2 seeds as equal to one another.
Right.
But the argument against me is that the complete unbiased way is to do just that.
yeah, well, I think that intellectually, intuitively, we know that if you do it randomly, there's going to be less accurate results. I mean, that's just somewhat obvious. So, I mean, I guess the question is whether we trust the pool's mechanism to do its job, without our intervention, or whether we want to have a bracket that's accurately seeded. I mean, that's like
Right.
a values question,
But
right?
but the person who disagrees with me would say that that's introducing your bias about your expectations about what should happen,
Yeah.
and that's what pools are for.
Right, and I think that that's a legitimate criticism, but at the same time, if what we really care about is the end result, then we need to have as accurate a bracket seeding as we can. And so all you're doing, as far as I can tell, is influencing the brackets to be more accurate. It's
Right,
artificial,
and
but I
yes,
mean, it's
so-
driving towards an end result that aligns with your values. And maybe the guy who's responding to you doesn't care about having an accurate bracket. He wants pools to go the way that pools are supposed to work.
Well, it will be accurate in the limit of, if you do this over and over, the distribution of results will eventually come out to be accurate.
Right.
But you can't guarantee
Since we only
that
have
for
2 rounds of
tournament.
pools, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a values question.
Yeah, I agree. So that's basically what I wrote up in my response, is that the tournament is basically, he said that my job is not to make people happy. My job is to run an unbiased bracket. And I said, well, I think it is partly my job to make people happy, and if I can sacrifice, if it takes a little bit of bias to do that, and again, I don't agree with the word bias, but then I'm going to do that, and a good TO knows, what the balance of those 2 things are, because, I think switching 2 people around to avoid a regional conflict who are equally good, assuming everybody is basically equally as good, it gives everybody a better experience, and the difference in results is, beyond, you can barely tell. I mean, it doesn't skew the results to a meaningful degree, I think.
So yeah, if anybody doesn't think that the TO's job is to give everybody the best possible experience, come on the next show. I would love to hear your opinion and sort of understand that mindset. I think that for me at least, is anybody in this chat of the opinion that the TO is not supposed to have a good tournament? Yeah, so if anybody really believes that, I would love to talk about it. But I think that what Sheridan's saying is pretty good.
All right. I think we're starting to drop some viewers.
Yeah, I want to go to bed, man.
2 hours and 2.5 hours in now. So.
Does anybody want to take questions?
Yeah, if there's a last couple questions that we can answer, that's great.
All right, guys. So yeah, just to wrap up, we have a pretty good list of things that we can do to, make things better. It's right here. I'm going to make this available on the thread. Please check it out. If anybody has any questions about how they can get involved in that, you can obviously reach us through Skype. Again, you can go through the forums. You can go through really anything. So yeah, with that, let's go to some questions, and then let's dip.
And again, there's more out there than Smash boards and Facebook. I want to give a shout out to the GameFAQs community. as well as the Smash Bros. Reddit, subreddit, pardon me. And finally, again, if you are capable, guys, NEC is a huge tournament that's next weekend. If you're capable of making that, please do. I myself am going to attempt to do it. I'm not sure if I can, but I'm going to do everything I can to make it there, and I implore you to do the same.
Yeah, so shout out to NEC. Take a look at it. We'll include it in whatever thread we have. Sound good? I have a good question from Doswell. What YouTube channel are we going to upload this to? We're going to upload to Waffles' channel because we want to leverage all the subscribers he has, and we're going to upload it to the VGBootCamp channel. We were thinking about doing a restream or like a rebroadcast on Friday. That's totally up to GimR, and I'll talk to him about that.
So I see a lot of people talking about Swiss in this stream, and I have actually run several Swiss tournaments, Swiss locals, in NorCal, and I can say I actually don't like them very much. I don't think they have any real major advantages over pools to bracket or in terms of accuracy. Definitely no advantages in terms of practicality from a TO standpoint. And one of the big problems I have is if you're going to do pool, or if you're going to do Swiss into bracket, for example, and you're going to take let's say the top 4, okay? Let's say top 8, because that's what I usually do. So what can happen is you have one person who's got the perfect record, maybe 2 people who have 1 loss, 4 people who have 2 losses, right? So that's 7, and then 5 people who have 3 losses. So now you have a 5-way tie for that last spot in the bracket. Breaking a tie break like that is really a pain in the ass, because basically the only thing you can do is strength of schedule in that case. And that's pretty much just the luck of the draw of who you got placed against during the Swiss tournament. And that's kind of a janky way to break a tie among 5 people. So that's one problem with it. Another problem is you are spending a lot of time running matches that have no material effect on most of the rest of the tournament. Once you have 2 or 3 losses, or whatever it is, in the case of your Swiss tournament, you're effectively eliminated, and it takes away from and those people are only going to play other people who are of the same skill level, and they all know that they're eliminated from the tournament. So the spirit of competition is somewhat diminished among them. It takes time from friendlies, and it's more hassle for the TO. So that's another reason why I don't run Swiss very often.
There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that something that would be great, it seems like a lot of people, at least in the chat, really believe in Swiss. I think that, yeah, we have run a few of them, and, I didn't really care one way or another, but it would be really cool to see TO's experiences with Swiss, players' experiences with them organized somewhere. So that's something else that we can talk about, how can we actually not collect data, but, in a way that's better than forums, like really understand who's doing Swiss well, who isn't, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I remember I wasn't at GS2 where they ran Swiss. I don't know. Maybe you were there at Cactuar? This was like 2005.
Getting school too? No, that was before me.
Okay. Yeah, I heard they ran Swiss. I didn't go to it, but I remember it happening. I don't know. There wasn't really much reaction to it. It didn't spur any debate about Swiss in the community at the time that I remember. Sounds like fun though, so I'm not in principle opposed to running Swiss. I just don't really see any advantages, any major advantages. One person mentioned that once people are mathematically eliminated, you can just have them stop playing matches. And yeah, that's true, but you can also just run a bracket, and they get the same number of matches. I mean, the goal, I guess, the idea is that these players don't get to play a whole lot of people. The lower skilled players don't get to play a whole lot of people in a tournament setting. They want to be able to play the top players from all over the different regions when they go to a tournament. And with Swiss, you kind of get locked into your skill level pretty early on. And with a pool, you get a big diversity of skill level and regions to play against. So that's one reason that I like pools better than Swiss.
Hey, so does anybody mind if I ask a wrap-up question and we sort of dip?
No, go for it.
All right, so last question, and this is something that I've been thinking about. Can we sort of, out of the four of us, I know where I stand on this issue, but it's kind of my opinion that circling back to ROM 5, a lot of things happen that we wish we could, maybe some of us wish we could take back. It could have been better. I think that it seems like at this point, we've all sort of agreed that we can't really punish anybody, and we need to learn from our mistakes and sort of move forward. And I think that's a really good place to be. So I wonder if, what do I do as a community member when I see people still, and not that this has happened, but I'm just imagining maybe like a week from now, a week and a half from now, people are still, for lack of a better phrase, like taking a dump on some of these people involved. How do we as a community basically take, I don't want to say trolls, but people who are being unproductive and sort of, push back against that and say, hey man, if somebody's taking a dump on M2K, hey, blah blah blah, you ruined this tournament. What do you guys think about what we can do to sort of be like, hey man, we're gonna learn from it going forward, and so like stop dumping on people in our community. Some people deserve it more than others, I guess, but does that make sense? I kind of rambled a little bit. I think I'm getting tired, but
I mean, I've made my effort to kind of explain the situation and defend all three parties involved. And if people still want to go out there and attack them for it, I mean, you're just coming off as ignorant. And to me, that kind of represents somebody that I'm not going to want to interact with at a tournament in the future. So you're just kind of exiling yourself from, higher level discussion. You're never going to progress in the community if you are the type of person who goes out there and attacks other people, because I'm going to notice you, and I'm going to know to avoid you. And, you can just be content being some forum troll, but you could also kind of focus your efforts and become somebody who can contribute, can become known for being a good asset in the community. And, really, that's the person's choice. So
yeah, you can be, you have to ask why somebody is going after these people. Do you actually want to, do you just want to make them feel bad, or do you want to help them understand, what they did, why what they did was wrong, and help the community out that way, or do you just want to feel better about yourself and put your beliefs and principles on display? And we don't have any use for people like that. So criticism is great when you have a goal in mind, when you're doing it in good faith with the other person, as in trying to persuade them of the error of their ways. But it's useless to just throw out some absolutist ideas and say this is wrong, and that's the end of my contribution. We can't have that.
And I think to specifically point out Kirby Kaze and Unknown and Mewtwo King to some extent, they know what contributed to bad things happening. They know where they could have done better. And in this situation, we've talked it to death. We really need to kind of not forgive, but understand that there's always next time, and they're going to have chances to prove themselves. So until that happens, you need to just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
M2K. No, go for it. I shouldn't.
Oh yeah. No, I think I might say what you were about to say was Mewtwo King seemed to express regret for this splitting, and he says he doesn't know that it was so bad, and he says he's not going to do it again. And I never know how to parse out the truth from what Mewtwo King says, but
Right.
I guess I'm inclined to believe him in this case.
I
As
think
long as nobody, I mean, I think maybe I believe that he believes it, but I don't know if that's actually, if somebody pressures him, then he might cave on that. Who knows?
yeah, but one way or another, like that's such a black and white statement that we'll know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Prague,
I said
any
before. Sorry, go for Prague.
closing thoughts?
We really can't stop them from saying what they feel in the situation. However, it's over, guys. It's happened. It's in the past. And honestly, I do believe it's a good thing because it did bring out a lot of issues that the community has. If this did happen, I probably wouldn't be pushing for better production in our streams and whatnot. We wouldn't be having a podcast like this week and things of that nature. So it definitely has been a good thing that this has occurred. It's going to help us more than just our tournament scene. It's going to strengthen us as a community, period.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a great note to dip out on.
Do you want to end on the intro?
Let's give some shout outs. Really? Yeah. All right. All right. For show. Just shout outs to VGBootCamp. Thanks guys for hosting us. I wanted to give a shout to Chibo Senpai, who was going to host this before VGBootCamp was available. Thanks so much. Thanks to Waffles for letting me use his channel for the video hosting. Guys, if you have any feedback on this discussion, if you think it could have been better in any way, please leave that feedback for us. And I'm going to take it very seriously. I hope that we can keep talking.
Sure.
And
I have a question. How often are we going to do this? That's what a lot of people have been asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I want to gauge the gauge, right? Gauge.
Yeah.
Not gauge.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always think it's gauge. G-A-U-G. I'm going to gauge the feedback, see what people think. I personally believe that for the next month we could do once a week. I think we have that much to talk about, and I think we could scale back. I imagine that if we're actually moving forward with the projects that we set out to do, we could talk all the time. But if we're not moving, then this is obviously not helping us, get where we need to be. So then then it's less useful, and we'll have to find out something else. I mean, ultimately, I want to do something productive, whether it's a podcast or not. But yeah, at this time. Yeah,
I think maybe 2 weeks would be a little bit better. I think we may get a little, we may run a little thin on topics if we do it once a week for the next month.
Yeah,
I would like to get a little bit more time to gauge the feedback.
Right.
So
no, you know what? I think that's
let's think
definitely
2
a good
weeks.
idea, for sure. Thanks, Sheridan.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, and then again, shout outs to everybody. You guys are homies. Kektor, Sheridan, get webcams for next time.
I kind of prefer this. I like it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like it
this-
too, but
this
you
is
could
good.
turn it on and turn it off, right?
Yeah, I guess I should get a webcam. I'll
Or
do
you
that.
could just hold.
Everybody wants to see me.
You could
so
hold
it's
the
fine.
picture. I mean, yeah, you could hold
Yeah.
the picture up to the camera.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, and then obviously thanks to all our watchers. You guys are homies. Good times. Later,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. It was great.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
See you out there. What's going on here?
We got a cool little video. Scar probably just whipped that up in like 4 hours.
Just thanks to Frog, the homie.
Nice.
Like that you got that hockey picture.
Special guest. Nobody. Go to bed, King Kong.
We had GimR for a little bit.
Peace Peace out, Romney 2012.